Thank you all for being here. We're going to ask Councilman Green to join us for our quorum. Would you? Thank you. We will now call the Finance Committee into order. We do have a quorum. To my left, Councilman Greenlee. To his left, Councilwoman Parker, Councilman Dom, and Councilman Green, as well as myself. That gives us a quorum, and we are now happy to begin our hearing. We will ask the clerk to read the title of, before we do, let me say that Bill number 170365 will be held at the request of the sponsor. That is 170365. We're now going to ask the clerk to read the title, and we will ask our treasurer, Rashida Johnson, to come forward. We will begin with 170432 and 170434. Thank you.
Bill number 170432, an ordinance constituting the 14th Supplemental Ordinance to the General Gas Works Revenue Bond Ordinance of 1998, authorizing the City of Philadelphia to sell either at public or private sale one or more series of Gas Works Revenue Bonds and Gas Works Revenue Bonds to refund such bonds, and one or more series of Gas Works Revenue Notes and Gas Works Revenue Bonds or notes to refund such notes, to pay the cost of certain capital projects and other project costs, authorizing the city to obtain credit enhancement for any series of the bonds or series notes, making certain determinations and covenants relating to Gas Works revenues and the payment of interest and principal, and authorizing covenants and actions in order that the bond note shall not be arbitrage bonds, all under certain terms and conditions, and 170434, an ordinance authorizing generally the continued issuance and sale by the City of Philadelphia of Gas Works revenue notes of the city, prescribing forms of notes and providing for their execution and payment, pledging certain revenues of the gas works as security, adopting a rate covenant, and directing the imposition and collection of rates and charges sufficient to comply therewith, prescribing the conditions precedent to the issuance of specific series of notes, including a resolution passed by the bond committee, providing for establishment of credit support for notes, providing for designation of fiscal agent and sinking fund depository, providing for establishment of a sinking fund and its management, providing remedies upon default, and providing for amendments and modifications.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Please identify yourself for the record and begin your testimony.
Sure. Rashida Johnson, City Treasurer.
Joseph Golden, Executive Vice President, Acting CFO of PGW.
Good afternoon, Councilwoman Blackwell and members of the Committee of Finance. I am Rashida Johnson, City Treasurer of the City of Philadelphia, and with me this afternoon is Joseph Golden, Acting Chief Financial Officer for the Philadelphia Gas Works. I'm here to testify in favor of Bill number 170432 and 170434. Bill number 170432, constituting the 14th Supplemental Ordinance, would authorize the Philadelphia Gas Works, working with the Office of the City Treasurer, to issue up to $300 million of Gas Works revenue bonds and Gas Works Revenue Notes program for capital needs in the aggregate principal amount up to $120 million. Proceeds from the sale of the bonds shall be used to finance capital projects, including the capital programs for the Gas Works included in the capital budget of Gas Works approved by the City Council, as well as required payments to sinking fund reserve and cost of issuance and or capitalized interest of the bonds. The proceeds from the sales of the notes shall be used only for authorized capital and maintenance projects of the gas works, as well as pay cost of issuance and or capitalized interest on the notes. Effecting this program will allow the city and the gas works to fund current and near future capital needs at short-term interest rates, while borrowing exactly at the time capital is needed, eliminating the need to reinvest bond proceeds in the current interest rate environment. Bill number 170434 will provide authorization to continue the Philadelphia Gas Works existing working capital commercial paper revenue program in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $150 million, designed to provide access to liquidity in the potential case of a shortfall. Bill number 170434 seeks an additional authorization of 5 years. Although the Gas Works has not drawn on this program since 2009, in the event of an unforeseen financial crisis or liquidity event, the commercial paper would provide working capital financing at short-term interest rates. I would like to respectfully request a suspension of the rules to allow for first reading of the bill at the next meeting of council. This concludes my testimony, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you very much. The chair notes Councilman Squilla is here, as well as Councilman Taubenberger. Thank you very much. Are there questions? Councilman Dom?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I just have a question. I want to make sure I understand. On the working capital commercial paper revenue notes, that's only in the need to provide liquidity in case of a potential shortfall. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so do we pay interest on that if we don't draw it down?
We don't pay interest. We do pay a letter of credit fee. The letter of credit fee is used to cover both authorization of the 120 million and the 150 million. It's a dual purpose letter of credit.
How much is the credit fee to have that liquidity potential of 150 million?
I don't know off the top of my head now.
Can we find that out?
Yes,
Yeah, we can get that information to you.
So basically, this is money that's put aside in case we need it. We don't pay interest on it, but we do pay an annual fee or a one-time fee?
We pay an annual fee on a monthly basis. It's the letter of credit to support it. To the extent that the notes are not issued, there is no interest component at all.
And that can't be accomplished through a line of credit through a bank for much lower fees, can it?
It could be. We're in the process
Right,
of
we
reviewing
actually
that
are
now.
working on an RFP right now to change from the letter of credit structure to a line of credit, and we should hopefully have the RFP out for bid next week sometime.
Right. Okay. And what is the interest rate typically on these bonds that you're seeing today?
I mean, I was going to say around the 4.5%.
Okay. If you could just let me know, I'd like to know what the fees are for that letter of credit. Just let the
Yep,
chairwoman know. Okay.
I'll get that back to you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Are there further questions? Thank you very much. The chair now asks the clerk to read the title of Bill number 170433 and 170438 and 170515. We ask Janet Parrish and PGW team to come forward.
170433, an ordinance approving the fiscal year 2018 capital budget providing for expenditures for the capital purposes of Philadelphia Gas Works, including the supplying of funds in connection therewith, subject to certain constraints and conditions, and acknowledging receipt of the revised forecast of the capital budgets for fiscal years 2019 through 2023. And 170438, an ordinance approving a lease agreement between Philadelphia Gas Works by the Philadelphia Facilities Management Corporation solely in its capacity as operator and manager of the city-owned Philadelphia Gas Works and Germantown Realty Investment Group, LP, for certain premises located at 212 through 214 West Shelton Avenue, and 170515, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-3200 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Keystone Opportunity Zone Economic Development District and Strategic Development Area to provide for extension of certain benefits under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you very much. Did you do 433, 438, and this testimony for 515?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The chair notes that Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown is here, as well as Councilman David O., and we're very, very glad to see him and that he is in good health. Thank you. Councilman Bobby Heenan is also here. So we thank them all for being here at this finance hearing. Thank you. We have nearly everyone here, but quite a quorum. Thank you very much. Please identify yourself and begin. Thank you, Ms. Parrish.
Thank you, Chairwoman Blackwell. My name is Janet Parrish. I'm the Interim Director of the Philadelphia Gas Commission. Seated to my left.
My name is Douglas Moser, Executive Vice President and Acting COO of PGW.
And he is here with me on bill on the 433, and with me on the 438, seated to my right.
Raymond Snyder, Senior Vice President for Gas Management at PGW.
Thank you.
So beginning with Bill 170433, thank you for the opportunity to present this testimony, Chairwoman Blackwell, members of the committee, on behalf of the Philadelphia Gas Commission. We have submitted written testimony, which I will not read into the record, but I would like to summarize, if I may. And attached to the testimony, I would note, are as a copy of the Gas Commission's order in this matter, and setting forth in full its recommendations to City Council regarding PGW's fiscal year 2018 capital budget. These recommendations were adopted at the Gas Commission's public meeting held on April 25th of this year. We, of course, are here today to urge Council, the committee and then Council's approval of the bill, and we are requesting a suspension of the rules so first reading can occur at the next session of Council. In brief, PGW's total request for the coming fiscal year was about $118 million. This included reauthorization of about $2.8 million in unused spending authority from its fiscal 2016 capital budget. And so after review, when all was said and done, what the Gas Commission is recommending to Council is a budget that is about $3.6 million less. That is about $114.4 million. This, I would note, is about $4.8 million than the current fiscal year 2017 capital budget. It does maintain higher levels of investment in accelerated cast iron main replacement, similar to last year. This is funded by a surcharge that I know you're familiar with, the distribution system improvement charge. It generates about $33 million per year towards accelerated cast iron main replacement, enabling PGW to replace an additional 13 to 15 miles per year on top of the old baseline 18 mile per year program. PGW also has submitted written testimony from Mr. Moser, which of course goes into additional detail about the specific projects in the budget. Just to highlight two other issues, if I may. One is that the Gas Commission is once again recommending that City Council would approve. It's an updated set of capital budget guidelines that we have brought to you for a number of years now for approval in conjunction with the annual capital budget. We call them the capital program protocols. And this has all the standards and conditions and rules that apply to the capital budget as approved. The other area I'd like to touch on briefly, as usual, is the DBE participation forecast in conjunction with the capital budget. As you know, each year we do ask PGW to provide that forecast, and this is arrived at through a line item by line item review of the capital budget. And of course, it backs out things such as PGW labor expense and other internal charges, also sole source contracts, which actually don't offer an opportunity for DBE participation. And it's always important to stress that unlike the city's reporting, PGW actually reports actual spend. So what you are seeing here, and we're seeing in the last 12 months on a rolling 12-month basis, a 14% actual DBE spend. That is, it may sound a little bit lower than the city's goals, but again, we are focused on spend and not just contracts which are being let and offer an opportunity for participation. For fiscal 2018, the DBE opportunity amount that was identified with respect to the budget is about $11 million higher than it was with the prior year's budget. So that does anticipate a slightly higher DBE spend in the coming fiscal year than last year. Now, the other thing that we've really been focused on is not just the spend itself, but analysis, more detailed analysis of where this participation is coming from. And so in the past year, year and a half, we have seen PGW begin to develop a lot more data and analysis at the request of the Gas Commission, and because I think is being driven as well by the PGW Board of Directors. And with this information, I think PGW will be better able to focus its efforts and identify where those opportunities exist and where they are untapped, where it's succeeding and where it is not doing as well. The other thing, and really just hot off the press as of earlier this afternoon, is the first disparity study that's been conducted for PGW by eConsult with the Milligan Group. And so literally that just came into our hands earlier today, so we haven't had a detailed opportunity to review it yet, but my high-level review indicates that it shows that there's still some untapped opportunity there to increase participation, but there is also a need to develop yet more granular data about the specific sub-industries in which ready, willing, and able vendors do exist who may or may not be being tapped yet. So I think it kind of sets the stage for additional efforts, and this is really an ongoing work in progress for PGW. So those are a few of the comments we wanted to share with you today, and of course, Mr. Moser and myself be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and certainly that is it for both bills.
Oh no, I'm happy to go on to Bill 438 if you'd like.
Yes, we'd like to get them in and then ask our questions.
Sure. So, again, good afternoon, Chairwoman Blackwell, members of the committee. My name is Janet Parrish. I'm the interim director of the Philadelphia Gas Commission. I'm here today to present testimony on behalf of the Gas Commission in support of Bill 170438. Attached to my written testimony, again, is a copy of the Gas Commission order setting forth its approval of the lease in question. And this is basically a 4-year renewal or extension, if you want to look at it that way, of a lease for PGW's Customer Service Center in the Germantown section of Philadelphia. It's a long-standing site of a customer service center. The Commission did approve the lease at its meeting held on April 25th of this year and is recommending that Council do likewise. Again, we are asking for a suspension of the rules so first reading can occur at the next session of Council. And again, additional details are contained in PGW's written testimony. Substantively, the lease is really virtually identical to the one that both City Council and the Gas Commission approved in 2013. And the first year rent, I'm happy to note, will be the same as the current rent, no increase in year one. Through the course of our review, PGW entered into some additional negotiations with the landlord and was able to have the annual rent escalator reduced from 3% to 2%. So it is a fairly straightforward, really renewal of a lease, and it's a fairly busy site, as I think you may be aware, for PGW customer traffic for various forms of assistance with bills and programs like the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program. And we favorably commend approval of the lease to this committee. We'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. We wanted to ask a question about the DBE issue. And it has here goals for 2016, 20%, goals for 2017, 17%. Now you say you've spent some thousands more, but during this time where it's so important and we're fighting so hard for jobs and inclusion in all neighborhoods, we wonder why it's gone from 20% to 17%. Again, what you expect in 2018 and what we can expect in the future.
I believe the goal of the 20% was an aspirational kind of goal. It was probably a little bit higher than we were going to be expected to achieve, but we wanted to set the bar high for ourselves to be able to try and strive for that. The 17% goal is probably the realistic kind of goal that we're going to be able to achieve.
Well, you know, it may be aspirational if you did it higher than you expected, but it was your goal. And during these times where we're really giving all the businesses, universities, we're holding their feet to the fire, we really expect to have real numbers and increase in participation, not decrease in participation. And we wonder when we can expect that. When can we expect an increase in these numbers? 16, 20, 17, 17.
I think as Ms. Parrish has indicated, we just finished a disparity study, which will help us to drive our program, find out help to determine those areas that we can expect greater participation, and we're committed to trying to achieve a higher goal and trying to achieve a greater participation on those levels.
And I would add, Chairwoman, if I may, I mean, your point is well taken. You know, you look at the numbers and you look at it as an aspirational statement, and even taking into account the fact that, as I mentioned, I mean, each year's goal is driven by the specifics of the budget. So sometimes there are certainly more opportunities for example, for professional services to be engaged because PGW has a large one-time project, and that offers an opportunity. It doesn't recur year to year. So you will see some fluctuation from year to year. But putting that aside, you know, the goal is certainly to do better, to do more. And that is why the focus of the Gas Commission has been on trying to give PGW direction in that vein to drive towards the more detailed analytics so they actually know and can analyze their vendor base.
That's good.
That's why you're seeing this disparity study for the first time. So are we there yet, 100%? No. I mean, I wouldn't say that, and I don't think PGW will tell you that. Are we moving in the right direction? I think yes. Staying focused on the fact that what you're seeing here cannot directly be compared to the city's numbers because it is actual spend and not a percentage of contracts which are being let. So it's a little difficult to compare apples and apples unless you are comparing apples.
Well, we do have some concerns with it, we ask that you note, and we will expect something different certainly as we move forward. Councilman Dom?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and good afternoon. Thank you for your testimony. So I have a couple quick questions. The small, easy one is the lease. I'm just looking at the paperwork. The lease is like $72,000 a year, roughly $6,000 a month. How many square feet is that property?
It's, I believe it's 4,112. And that, I believe, is stated in the ordinance.
Okay. And the other question I had is, we were at a briefing, at least I was, maybe some of the new council members, maybe a year or two ago, or 18 months ago, whatever it was, but they showed us how the PGW average bills were going down for the citizens of the city. Is that still the case, or is it different right now?
I'll ask Mr. Moser to address that.
The commodity, the price of the gas, the commodity itself has continued to go down at that point in time, but right now it's pretty much leveled off, and we expect it to stay flat in the near future.
Okay. So then the city of Philadelphia essentially is the shareholder, right, of PGW? It's owned by the city,
Yes.
technically, right?
Yes.
And so we've seen our revenues go down. But my question, and I've been asking about this for the last, whatever time I've been here, we have several buildings the city owns. I don't know if there's 18, 20, or 25 buildings that are not using PGW, using an alternative source. And it seems to me that the potential of revenue for those conversions is between roughly maybe $3 to $4 million potential a year. And do we have a written plan of when we're going to convert those buildings over? Because it's not just the annual revenue that I'm concerned about. My concern is if we ever want to value PGW on a capitalization rate, that $4 million of income could equate to $80 million of value. And so my question is, whether it's the Art Museum or whether it's in 2020 or whenever it is, I I would like to see a written plan of when we're going to convert the buildings the city owns to the utility company the city owns.
So I would offer that, I guess the question is, who does that plan come from? Is that the administration?
I think it
or
should
is
be a
that
joint effort between the administration and PGW.
PGW is certainly a willing partner in that.
And I would agree
It's
to
going to
that.
help PGW,
Yeah,
right?
I would agree to that. We would encourage, all conversions of city buildings over that have the opportunity to convert over. We'd be more than happy to work with whoever is designated as our point of contact to be able to work with the city to accomplish that.
So we have to convene a meeting to have that plan in writing, because otherwise we'll be here in 2020 talking about the same thing.
I would agree, sir.
And in the case of PGW, in order to find new revenue versus raising the rates, we need more customers. And as long as the city owns these buildings, it seems to me they should be on PGW. Okay.
I would
Thank
agree,
you.
sir.
All right, thank you for your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Are there any further questions?
Yes.
Councilwoman Reynolds Brown?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Following up to Chairwoman Blackwell's questions, I'm curious, you state in your testimony that you seek a number of ways to honor what you put on paper with regards to DBE, WBE participation. Do you currently have any joint ventures? You have here a joint venture arrangement with the DBE. Are there any joint ventures currently with the DBE?
We do not have any joint ventures with PGW. Some of our prime contractors joint venture with...
Please pull the mic closer to you.
I'm sorry. PGW does not joint venture, but some of our prime contractors would joint venture with a subcontractor to achieve that.
That are DBE?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
And when you say that PGW is, quote, committed to increasing the opportunities and the awarding of contracts to DBEs wherever possible, what does that translate into? Provide us with some examples.
We do have our supply chain individuals here today, if you'd like to hear from them as to a lot of the programs that they have instituted.
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. We have the Vice President of Supply Chain, Anthony Mauro, M-A-U-R-O, and also the Director of Contract Management and Supplier Diversity, Erica Patterson.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Please state your names for the record.
Yes, Erica Patterson, Director of Contracts Management and Supplier Diversity in the Supply Chain Department at PGW.
We're going to have to ask you to please pull the mic closer to you.
Sure.
Terrific. Sir?
Tony Morrow, Vice President of Supply Chain at PGW.
Okay. So by way of background, and again I'm quoting from the testimony, these vendors are actively recruited to participate in PGW's procurement opportunities. So provide for us a couple of examples of what that means, what that looks like.
So I'm sorry, can you repeat the question
Yes,
again?
it says here in the testimony, your DPW's testimony, this is not DPW, this is PGW.
PGW.
Accordingly, these vendors are actively recruited to participate in PGW's procurement opportunities. So just share with us briefly what that means, what that looks like when you actively recruit.
Yes, as an initiative to support the Supplier Diversity Program at PGW, what we do is we have built relationships with OEO. We have also built relationships with, recently with the Greater Philadelphia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, also the African American Chamber of Commerce, and soon to come the Asian Chamber of Commerce, to build these strategic partnerships that will allow us to meet new minority, small, or women-owned businesses, to bring them into PGW as a meet and greet, so that they are fully aware of the different types of opportunities that we have to offer, and we can also get to know their side of their business and what expertise they have to offer to kind of meet up in a matchmaking perspective to bring those opportunities to them and to bring their expertise to PGW.
So you say these are new strategic partnerships, new as of when? The last 6 months, the last year?
I'm going to say within the last year. Most recent
Okay.
ones is our membership corporate membership with the Greater Philadelphia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
And also the African Chamber of Commerce as well.
And so then, do you track, you have some means of tracking the yield of what those partnerships return?
So because this is kind of like a fairly new, recent initiative, we do have or will be putting mechanisms in place to track that, to kind of understand the performance and the relationships that we are gaining out of those partnerships, yes.
You care to add anything, Mr. Marrow?
No, Erica assumed the responsibility for supplier diversity at PGW just almost exactly 2 years ago. And I can tell you, you won't find a person who is more dedicated, really into building relationships. And look, she has a real passion for this in this area, and we do a lot to support her. We're looking to, anywhere we can, to find any opportunity to increase our spend with women, minority, and disabled-owned companies.
Okay. So then I would suspect that if you're about a year old, or this new practice initiative is a year old, that a year from now, you'll be able to provide some greater detail and further speak to Council Chairperson Blackwell's concern that the aspirational goal is actually lower than.
Yes, there's a lot of moving parts in our development or building that foundation for our supplier diversity program. Just as Ms. Parrish said, the disparity study is kind of hot off the press. So from a data analytics perspective, that will be that component that we would need to kind of digest that information, along with building strategic partnerships and continuing to add additional resources and tools that will help us along the way to kind of finalize our program. So yes.
Okay. Well, thank you. We'll look forward to that update.
You're welcome.
A year from now.
Thank you. Councilwoman Parker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a quick follow-up to Councilwoman Blackwell and Councilwoman Reynolds Brown's comments relative to the diversity and inclusion. Let me also first just commend you for even getting the process started and being proactive, because the way things have happened in this body since I've been a member of it, and even when I was in Harrisburg, is usually we don't get to the diversity and inclusion discussion until something requires us to do so and to take action. So thank you for being forward thinking. With that being said, I'll ask that you also think about members of council as a part of your recruitment strategies and tools, because we all send out e-blasts and newsletters, and we have networks of small business owners who we interact with, and particularly the district council members on a regular basis, and then the councilmen and women at large citywide. So as you're working on recruitment and you're using these very particular entities, we also want to make sure that we're reaching out to churches and using any vehicle that may not normally be a part of the recruitment process.
Right.
So, because it can only add value to your recruiting efforts.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. I think that's an awesome statement. Just to add on to that, for further initiatives that PGW is doing, we've also built a relationship since I've been actually promoted to director within the last 2 years. We've built that relationship with OEO. We meet with them quarterly. And in addition to that, Iola Harper has also included us on several committees, such as the EORC committee, which we will take part in upcoming. Also, OEO's committees that they have on a regular basis as well, to bring that local entity inclusion so that we're all on the same page as it relates to building strategic partnerships and growing our programs individually, but doing it from a collective perspective.
Yes, look, listen, the celebratory mode will come in when you look at the ROI a year or a year and a half to 2 years later, and you look at everything that you've invested and you see the yield. That it makes it matter. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? Thank you very much. We'll now call on Dwayne Bum, Senior Deputy Director of Commerce, for Bill number 170515. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Chairwoman Blackwell, and members of the Committee on Finance. My name is Dwayne Bum. I'm the Senior Deputy Director of Commerce for the City of Philadelphia. I'm here today on behalf of the administration to testify in support of Bill 170515, a bill authorizing the City of Philadelphia to apply to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to extend the Keystone Opportunity Zone, or KOZ, designation and its related benefits for an additional 10 years for 46 properties. The KOZ program was created in 1999 to stimulate private investment on vacant or underutilized properties. This coordinated program allows for state and local business taxes to be waived on targeted sites approved for participation by both levels of government. The KOZ program has been modified several times over the last 19 years, with many new properties added and the benefit term of other properties extended. Since the implementation of the KOZ program, the results in Philadelphia have included over $1.7 billion in new private investment and approximately 12,000 jobs created or retained. Under current state legislation governing the KOZ program, the City of Philadelphia may apply to the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development, or DCED, for the extension of term for properties currently receiving KOZ benefits, provided the property owner has not previously utilized KOZ benefits and the property continues to remain vacant or underutilized. Applying for extension of KOZ benefits for selected properties will allow the city to maximize the impact of the KOZ program for those businesses that are currently considering a significant investment by the city. The Department of Commerce is actively working with several companies considering new development in the city. 2 of these businesses are expected to make location decisions within the next 2 months and have identified sites in the city that are in active competition for those development opportunities. Each of these location decisions could result in the construction of major new facility and the creation of over 1,000 permanent jobs. In each case, the value of KOZ benefits will be critical in determining whether a site in Philadelphia is selected for the investment. Both businesses making imminent site decisions will be seeking a full 10 years of KOZ benefits. The only way to provide that term is to seek an extension of the KOZ designation for the selected sites. The city will only make an application to the state for the extension of KOZ benefits once a business has been identified that is ready to invest and create jobs in the city. We are seeking the 10-year KOZ extension to assure that Philadelphia is the preferred location for these businesses. In addition to the 5 KOZ properties being considered for these 2 immediate attraction candidates, the Department of Commerce is requesting permission to extend 39 additional KOZ properties throughout the city. Except for the 2 privately owned properties in the Northeast being considered as the preferred site for one of the imminent business opportunities, the remaining 44 properties being requested for KOZ extension are all owned through PIDC and the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development, or PAID. All properties are located within our industrial parks, along the Delaware River, and at the Navy Yard. We will submit each of these sites to DCD for extension as new projects become imminent. Receiving city and school district authorization to make an application to the state for extension of KOZ benefit allows the city's economic development team to rapidly and definitively offer 10 years of KOZ benefits when attracting businesses. As has been the case in previous rounds of KOZ legislation, extensions and designations, the city will require all property owners to enter into a payment in lieu of taxes, or pilot agreement, for the term of the KOZ extension, with payments set at 110% of the previous year's real estate taxes. All pilots will be in effect for the life of the KOZ designation. This concludes my testimony. I respectfully request the committee's support for Bill 170515 and request that you vote this bill out of committee with a favorable recommendation, and further ask that the rules of council be suspended to allow for a first reading at council's next scheduled session. Thank you for your consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. We'll now call on, is it Councilman Heenan?
We're sharing.
All right, Councilman Dom and Heenan. They'll share the question.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I have a few quick questions. We visited this KOZ issue, and the governor held us up on the new applications back in, I guess, last year, was it?
Last fall.
Yeah. Do you think that he's going to be a problem extending these?
No, we are allowed by existing legislation to extend properties so long as they meet certain tests. And we've done that even over the last year. We've extended properties, so no, I don't think we
Okay.
have an issue.
Just so I'm clear on a few things, there's 2 companies right now you're working with for new
Yes.
locations.
Yes.
Are they within the current KOZs that we have on the books?
Neither of those companies is within the city right now at all.
No, but would their locations be within the current?
The sites that each of those companies is looking at are KOZ sites.
Okay. The other question I had is on the first page of your testimony, you talked about $1.7 billion in new private investment since the implementation of the KOZs. Do you have any idea of what the percentage is of the total investment in the city? Is that 5% of the investment, 10%? That would help understand the impact in measuring the impact of the KOZ.
I don't have that right now,
Okay.
but you're right. I think that we can find that for you.
I'd be
And
curious to know that
Yes.
number. And the other question is the Navy Yard,
Yes.
which Urban Land Institute last March, I think, or May, recognized as the #1 adaptive reuse of space as a KOZ. There are at least 12,000 jobs there alone. Do you think this number might be low, 12,000?
Well, some of the jobs at the Navy Yard, the jobs, for example, at the Department of Navy, were there before, and those count toward
Right.
toward that.
But is this 12,000 all the KOZs?
Yes, it is. Parts of the Navy Yard, including the shipyard, were not in the KOZ, for example.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. All right.
Madam Chair, thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Just to, I don't know, maybe I made the wrong decision on letting the councilman go first or answered all the good questions or asked the good questions, but has anything changed on, is this just a simple reapplication process because the time had expired for the state, or are we adding properties to it?
We can't add any properties right now. The only ability we have is to extend the term of existing sites that are still eligible.
So this is just a
It's re-
technical standard extension of the time so we
It's-
can get in within the state's fiscal budget?
Yeah, it's basically resetting the clock so that any business that comes into a KOZ site has a full 10 years of benefits.
Right, because they could be harmed because the state hasn't
Yes,
enacted their legislation, which enables us to do ours. So we're giving the state permission to extend the time on the properties that we have listed through this legislation.
yes.
Is that correct? Great, thank you.
Further questions? Yes, Councilman Dom?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I have one other question. Those 2 companies that want to come to the city of Philadelphia and be in a KOZ,
Yes.
which of our taxes are the most onerous for them? Have they identified that to you? Like, of all the taxes we have in the city, which one would be the biggest factor for them not to come if they can't get into a KOZ?
So different companies will have different tax implications, and these are very different sorts of companies. My guess is that in each case, the tax that's most onerous is a state tax, which the KOZ also sort of
State
waives.
tax?
State taxes are also waived by KOZ, which is one of the reasons we want to put KOZ in place here, because it requires that the state also waive its taxes. So state corporate taxes, for example, in certain cases could be the most onerous tax. The city, one of the taxes that is waived is real estate tax, but we already have a 10-year tax abatement, which effectively sort of takes care of that tax. So the other tax, one tax that's very impactful for new construction would be the sales tax. So the 6% state and 2% local sales tax for all the construction materials would be very impactful, probably the most impactful in the first year of the program. And then the business income receipts tax is probably the next in line.
Is the net income portion of the BERT, business income receipts tax, a big factor?
It can be. Again, I think much of this depends on the type of company. The two examples that we have here that are confidential companies that haven't named themselves yet, one would be a corporate headquarters function, again with over 1,000 jobs, and the other one would be a distribution center, and they have very different sort of tax implications. So the net profit would, on the headquarters company, be very impactful.
Okay, first of all, I can tell you this, we all want these companies here, so whatever we can do to help, we'll be there. I think thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we'll call forward Frank Breslin, Revenue Commissioner, for Bill number 170519.
170519, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-1300 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Real Estate Taxes by creating a tax foreclosure diversion program that requires housing counseling assistance, updating tax installment payment agreements to help taxpayers with financial hardships and other related items, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you. Please identify yourself and begin your testimony.
Good afternoon. Frank Breslin, Revenue Commissioner, with me.
Marissa Waxman, First Deputy Revenue Commissioner.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Blackwell and members of the Committee on Finance. I am Frank Breslin, Revenue Commissioner and Chief Collections Officer. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on Bill 170519, which seeks to help our most vulnerable homeowners avoid foreclosure and remain tax compliant. The administration, and particularly the Department of Revenue, are in complete agreement that helping homeowners stay in their homes is a moral and financial obligation we have to our residents. Several years ago, the Department of Revenue, the Law Department, Community Legal Services, and City Council worked collaboratively for approximately 18 months to develop the Owner-Occupied Payment Agreement, we call UPA. For most homeowners, UPA ties their monthly payment for delinquent real estate taxes to their ability to pay. Thousands of individuals and families have entered the program and are making their monthly payments and are protected from further enforcement and additional interest and penalties. Offering UPA while continuing to improve our collection efforts has led to a meaningful reduction in the number of non-compliant taxpayers while generating more than $100 million annually from delinquent collections to fund city services and the School District of Philadelphia. Now that we have a few years' experience with UPA, we can see that there are still some gaps in this safety net. In particular, low-income homeowners who cannot afford to pay the current year bill, a requirement under UPA, are still struggling. Bill 170519 offers a starting point for the team that developed UPA and others to come together again to design a solution that will protect these homeowners. We met last Thursday with Council President's staff about ideas to develop these initial proposals into a successful program. We discussed how to engage more stakeholders, like the legal services and housing counseling agencies, various city departments, community and civic leaders, and the homeowners themselves into the process of designing a program to meet our shared goal of keeping homeowners in their homes and avoiding the threat of tax foreclosure. We look forward to collaborating on this effort. Thank you for the opportunity to testify this afternoon. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. That's so important. Councilman Don?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you for your testimony. I'm just curious on the UPA program, what's the lowest monthly payment available?
$25 per month.
$25 per month?
Yes.
And then if it's an example, I'm not familiar with it, but if the tax bill is $1,000 a year and I'm paying $25 a month, what happens to the balance of that money?
The balance kind of, it's frozen, and it sits until such time that the property is sold, and then the delinquency would be satisfied.
And does it sit there with interest or without interest?
Without interest and penalty.
So it's an interest-free loan until the transfer of the property occurs?
Correct.
And then if you were to design another program, you're talking about a payment less than $25 a month?
Possibly. There's other opportunities. As I said in my testimony, one of the things that's a requirement of UPA is to use the $25 a month example. A taxpayer who's in that agreement and paying $25 a month, when their New Year's tax liability rolls on, the requirement is to stay current on that. And that has been an obstacle for some taxpayers to remain current in their UPA agreement. Now, although the law doesn't require it, the department, when made aware of those situations, we've been allowing the taxpayers to remain in UPA. We've basically been taking their current year liability when they can show a hardship and inability to pay, and putting that balance into the UPA and allowing them to just continue to make their $25 a month payment.
So what you're saying is the UPA bill says the first year can pay 25, but after that, got to pay the full amount. But you've been allowing them to pay the $25 a month going forward.
Correct.
And so, in your opinion, what kind of alternative would be to paying $25 a month?
Well, some of the things discussed would be to formalize that ability to roll the current year taxes into the UPA agreement. That would allow the current program to exist with revision, as opposed to designing a completely separate deferral program. But really the goal is, this was one meeting and, a little bit of brainstorming, but we really want to get all the stakeholders into a room and really discuss what the options are. We really committed during that 18 months where we were doing UPA, and we met, very frequently and for a long period of time, and came up with a program that has been very effective, I believe, but as I testified, and as has been exhibited, it still left some gaps in that safety net, and we're committed to try to close those.
Is there a requirement to get into UPA or any of these payment plans that we have them go through the EITC and make sure see if they qualify so they can get even more money?
Well, one of the things that we do when anyone comes in for an UPA or one of our low-income agreements is we make sure that our service reps make them aware of the earned income tax credit so that they're not missing out on that.
Right. And there's other programs also available. I guess all the plans that are available, I just want to make sure that they've signed off and said, so we can get them as much money as possible, to help them.
Yes, absolutely. That was the goal of this. Is to, and the Department of Revenue is committed to trying to increase enrollment in all of the assistance programs. And this past year, the current fiscal year, we brought on an administrator for assistance programs in for both the tax side and the water side of the department.
And so, have you ever, after they enter the UPA program, do we do any kind of cross-marketing to those people, telling them again about earned income tax credit and other programs?
We do.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your testimony. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you very much. The next panel on this subject will be Erwin Trouse, Philadelphia Legal Assistance, Monty Wilson and Rocco Labrosiano, Community Legal Services, and Will Gonzalez, Executive Director, SEBA. Thank you. Good afternoon. Please identify yourself in any order and begin your testimony.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. My name is Catherine Martin. I'm a staff attorney at Community Legal Services. I'm here with my client, Rocco Labrosiano. Community Legal Services of Philadelphia has long been an advocate of low-income homeowners. Today, we support Council President Clark's proposed bill to create a tax diversion program and a tax deferral program. In support of the tax deferral program, we offer the testimony of my client, Mr. Rocco Labrosiano, who is a low-income Philadelphian who would benefit from the protections of a tax deferral program.
Thank you, ma'am. My name is Rocco Labrosiano. I I reside 1731 South Mole Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. 19145 is the zip code. My mother and father are the record owners of my home in South Philadelphia. I lived in the home all my life. My mother passed away in 1998. My father was a retired federal police officer, a captain at that. He is deceased now. I used to work for the Philadelphia School Board, and I was injured on the job. And I was shot 6 times in the back. I was saving my little daughter. She was only 4 at the time. I had been operated on this problem many times for that. And I had 2 heart attacks. I'm crippled. I have a paralysis in my left leg. I am on lots of medicines. And I'm not well at all. My only income is $735 a month in Social Security. If I lose my home, I will have nowhere to go. I lived there all my life. I don't know no other house. I've tried everything in my power to do everything that I can, but it doesn't cover everything. When you're hungry, no one hears your stomach growling but you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, and we're praying for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Erwin Traus with Philadelphia Legal Assistance. Madam Chairman, members of the committee, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to speak in support of this bill, which is an immensely important bill. I'm with Philadelphia Legal Assistance, where I've worked for the last 22 years. I've been an attorney representing low-income homeowners in an attempt to prevent them from losing their homes to tax and mortgage foreclosure for the past 42 years. I would like to first applaud the testimony of the Revenue Commissioner, Mr. Breslin, and his recognition that the robust protections that are in place currently for preventing low-income homeowners from losing their homes has some gaps. There are holes in the safety net through which people are falling. And the people, in our experience, that are falling through those safety net are the most vulnerable, the people most in need of affordable housing, the minority homeowners. And it's our experience running the Save Your Home Philly hotline, which is supported by the Department of Housing and Community Development of the City of Philadelphia. We run the hotline. It was originally a hotline designed to protect homeowners from mortgage foreclosure as part of the City of Philadelphia's mortgage foreclosure prevention program, and as part of the First Judicial District's mortgage foreclosure diversion program. In recent years, tax foreclosures have now far outstripped mortgage foreclosures as the primary source of people, low-income people, losing their homes. I have attached, I'm not going to read my testimony, I'm going to try to summarize it. I've attached to my testimony, I don't know if council members have that, but there are 2 charts and a map attached. The graph number 1 shows that in around 2012 or 2013, tax foreclosures began to exceed mortgage foreclosures as the kinds of properties we've been seeing. Graph number 2 shows dramatic increase in tax foreclosures from the period 2010 through 2015 to the beginning of 2016. And the map at the end of my testimony, I think dramatically demonstrates part of the problem with the present tax foreclosure sale practices of the City of Philadelphia. A fairly cursory look at that map demonstrates that the overwhelming number of properties that are being sold for tax sales, and this is residential properties. This is a map, as best could be determined, of the residential properties that are being sold, that are subject to petition, tax sale petitions in the City of Philadelphia for the year 2016. The vast majority of them are in minority census areas of the City of Philadelphia. 85% or 84% of the properties that are subject to tax petitions, residential properties, are in majority census tracts in the city. Which means it's our experience, and this is anecdotal experience from the people who we see coming to us for help. It's our experience that the tax sales that are actually taking place are tax sales of people who are falling through the safety net because they are infirm, elderly, have insufficient incomes to allow them to pay the current taxes on their homes, are otherwise vulnerable. And what we are also seeing is that often these sales are for relatively low tax balances, and the sales themselves are usually for a fraction of the value of the property. And what we see is that the City of Philadelphia, unintentionally, I'm sure, is acting as an agent for the transfer of wealth from our minority communities and our minority homeowners to speculators and property flippers. And this bill, which we endorse, and we also endorse some further steps that the Revenue Commissioner has indicated his willingness to consider, this bill goes a long way by creating a diversion program and a deferral of prospective taxes, or a part of prospective taxes. By doing that, this bill goes a long way to enable the city to ensure that its tax collection practices are in line with its objectives and its policies, which are policies of avoiding and ending homelessness, ensuring that low-income elderly folks and elderly folks in general can age in place, and promoting minority ownership, home ownership, and taking steps to protect the wealth that's been accumulated by our minority citizens in their real property, rather than seeing that wealth decimated and transferred to private business interests. So in closing, I'd like to once again thank you for the opportunity to speak. I want to in particular thank Council President Clark for inviting me to address this bill and to share our experiences on the hotline with what we're seeing, and be happy to answer questions either now or at the end of the panel's testimony.
Thank you.
Do you wish to hold questions till we've all spoken?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, members of the committee. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to speak today in support of Bill 170519. Community Legal Services strongly supports this bill, which adds two very significant protections to our city's most vulnerable homeowners when they're struggling to pay their annual real estate taxes, owed on their most valuable asset, their homes. First, the bill creates a property tax foreclosure diversion program, similar to Philadelphia's nationally renowned mortgage foreclosure diversion program. tax delinquent homeowners would be referred to housing counseling and legal services agencies early and often during the collection process for assistance applying for programs such as the homestead exception, the senior tax freeze, and the owner-occupied payment agreement program. Second, the bill creates a property tax deferral program, which would allow our most vulnerable homeowners, families living in deep poverty, the elderly, people who are physically and mentally disabled, to defer payment of real estate taxes owed on their homes. This would allow these homeowners to remain in their homes rather than losing their homes at a tax sale and pushing them into the city's shelter system, nursing homes, hospitals, and streets, sometimes at a net cost to the city. I am a supervising attorney at Community Legal Services in Philadelphia, where we provide free legal services and representation to low-income Philadelphians. When I began working at CLS, my work focused on defending homeowners facing mortgage foreclosures or predatory lending by private banks. Since 2004, I've represented an increasing number of homeowners who are facing legal action by the city to collect delinquent property taxes owed on their homes, a property tax foreclosure. Since 2009, the city has sharply increased its collection of these taxes, collecting an estimated $1.3 billion in real estate in fiscal year 2016, an increase of $100 million from 2015. As noted by Council President Clark, along with this increase in revenue, there's been a 1,200% spike in the number of tax foreclosure actions filed by the city from 2010 to 2016, with 4,450 of those tax foreclosures filed against owner-occupied homes in 2016. We recognize that the city needs this money to provide services and funds for our schools. At the same time, however, City Council and Mayor Kenny must recognize the impact that this tax increase and increase in collections and tax foreclosures has on the most vulnerable homeowners, as well as on our communities and our neighborhoods. Community Legal Services advised over 300 homeowners struggling with delinquent property taxes in 2016, and we're on track to see another 300 similar homeowners this year. Problems with delinquent property taxes are now the #1 issue which comes to our office in North Philadelphia on intake for advice. Yet I think CLS and PLA, Philadelphia Legal Assistance, are seeing only the tip of the iceberg. We can estimate that there are at least 20,000 residential homestead properties with tax delinquencies outstanding, and I believe the number is probably closer to 25,000. Not all these homeowners are necessarily low income. However, in a city where 26% of Philadelphians live in poverty and 184,000 Philadelphians live in deep poverty on less than $850 a month for a family of 3, we can safely say that there are thousands of low-income homeowners who are struggling each month with a choice to pay for either food, water, or property taxes. Many of these poorest homeowners are elderly and living on fixed Social Security benefits. Others, like Mr. Labraciano, are surviving on disability benefits. These are the most vulnerable homeowners who are slipping through the city's current safety net. Bill 170519 is a significant step towards improving the safety net in 2 important ways. First, it broadens the net by creating the tax diversion program that will allow the Department of Revenue to quickly refer eligible homeowners to housing counseling and legal service agencies as early as possible. These agencies can provide advice and assistance in applying for payment plans or other tax relief programs, or help homeowners deal with the threat and anxiety of a tax foreclosure filing against their home. A tax diversion program will need to be paid for and funded, but the cost should be reduced since Philadelphia already has an active system of housing counseling and legal service agencies in place under the current mortgage diversion program. Any new cost will involve expanding the current system, not simply creating it out of whole cloth. Additionally, every time a proposed diversion program helps a taxpayer enter into a payment plan or resolve litigation, the city will save on considerable time and expense in court costs, attorney's fees, and other charges of litigation. We will be submitting a set of proposed amendments to the bill, which should clarify that access to housing counseling and legal service agencies should occur early, often, and throughout the process. These referrals should begin when the initial bills are sent out in November or December, throughout any foreclosure litigation, and even after the sale, so homeowners can be advised of their right of redemption. Nevertheless, we applaud the fundamental idea that expanding the safety net by using the system of local agencies we already have in place throughout the neighborhoods in Philadelphia to help all homeowners, not just the poorest. to successfully pay their property taxes and to access tax relief programs like the homestead exemption and the owner-occupied payment agreement program. The bill also adds an additional layer to the safety net by creating a property tax deferral program, allowing low-income homeowners, seniors, and others who can show significant financial hardship to defer payment of all or part of their residential property taxes. The deferred taxes would accrue interest and come due when the homeowner dies or the property is sold. The bill also caps the total of annual deferrals, allowing the city to accurately predict the maximum financial cost of the program. For homeowners living in deep poverty, a full or partial deferral may be the only way they can afford to rein them in their homes. Living on less than $750 a month, Mr. Labraciano struggles but pays his bills each month. I have other elderly clients who are surviving on food stamps and Meals on Wheels, but simply have nothing left over at the end of the year to pay their annual property taxes. Some of my clients suffer from physical and mental disabilities, which makes paying the bills even more challenging. The proposed deferral program would help many of these homeowners to shelter in place, sometimes at considerably less cost to the city than if they were forced into the shelter system. For example, Mr. Labraciano's home was sold to collect less than $6,000 total in water and tax bills. Without CLS's help to set aside the sale, if Rocco Labraciano had been ejected and moved into the shelter system, even at the lowest cost of $40 per night per a bed for a shelter bed, Mr. Labraciano would have cost the city $14,600 annually. That's a net loss to the city of $8,600. If he was elderly or had children or required hospitalization or other social services, the cost to the city could have been dramatically higher. The proposed tax deferral program recognizes that in certain situations, it is simply more cost-effective for the city to allow some homeowners to shelter in place in their homes rather than to foreclose on them for a relatively small amount of money and incur greater costs later on. We urge the committee to vote in favor of this bill. Property taxes affect us all, but in a city with one of the highest rates of low-income homeownership in the nation, property taxes have the most impact on Philadelphia's poorest and most vulnerable homeowners. Without the programs contained in this bill, the city's increased collection efforts, though well-intentioned, threaten to substantially reduce the city's stock of affordable housing. The diversion program and the deferral program proposed by this bill go a long way to set a policy that says to these vulnerable homeowners, you're not just a source of revenue. You are all part of Philadelphia's neighborhoods and communities. Each of you, each individual, each family has a value. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Thank you, gentlemen, very much. Yes, Councilman Dom.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I have a question for the panel. Do you think, I'm gonna make sure I understand, the bill recommends total deferral of all taxes. The homeowner pays no taxes until they either pass away or they sell the property.
The bill recommends, that is an option to have the person defer the taxes. However, it leaves it, right now it doesn't speak to whether the person will necessarily always get a total deferral or a partial deferral. So there is room for the department to allow only a partial deferral.
And the current program, UPA, which has, according to the commissioner, payments down to $25 a month, you don't think, can that program be adjusted to accommodate this, or you think you need a whole new program?
Well, I think, to go back to the commissioner's earlier response to you, I think it's important to understand that with UPA, you don't just pay $25 a month. It's that there are tiers of payments. So those with the lowest level of income, 30% of area median income in Philadelphia, someone living on $735 a month, they might pay $25 a month towards the delinquency. They still have to maintain the current taxes in full. So if their yearly tax bill is $2,400, they need to be saving another $200 a month on top of that $25. So what I usually explain to clients is your house bill, your rent to stay in your home, is really that $200 for next year's taxes plus another $25 on top of that. What we're running into is some people are able to do that. They can make those 2 monthly payments. But now we're running into the people whose incomes are so low and money is so tight, they can't afford to save up next year's tax bill. It's simply too tight. So simply lowering the monthly payment isn't going to solve the problem.
So if I could, there's a couple issues. One important distinction is that UPA is backward-looking.
Is what?
Backward-looking. The amendments in this bill are forward-looking. So UPA was originally designed to address tax delinquencies. It wasn't designed to address the current obligation to pay taxes, as Monty described. So when you go into an UPA agreement and they say, okay, for the lowest tier, you can pay $25 a month for the back taxes, essentially what's happening is that there's a deferral of those back taxes. You're paying $25 a month on those back taxes. If the property's ever sold, those back taxes will be collected. But you have to pay the current taxes. Now, the current taxes can be small, they can be big, and in many areas of Philadelphia, which once were moderate and low-income areas, they are now growing and often dramatically growing. So looking forward, what we're seeing are people who, one, simply can't afford, as Monty described, may not be able to afford any significant amount of taxes, simply if they're living on $700 a month because you're on Social Security or SSI, you've had a lifetime of work, you've paid off your mortgage, and this is a point I want to make. Most of these houses are houses in which people have lived for lifetimes and paid off their mortgages. These are people who, for some reason, after they've paid their mortgages, have limited income, drastically reduced income because of age or disability or some other problem, and now because there's no mortgage. When there was a mortgage, the taxes were being paid. Now there's no mortgage, taxes aren't being paid. So there are people who can't afford even modest taxes sometimes, often can't afford rapidly rising taxes, often don't have the wherewithal to object when the city sometimes wrongfully dramatically increases the value of the property without actually looking at the property to justify the increase. So you have people that are the least able to defend themselves against a sale, and what we see is that's whose houses the city is selling. You know, it may be the city's also selling some commercial properties, but you know, the people who walk into our doors are the people who can't even get it together to take advantage of UPA and all these other things that perhaps could mitigate their taxes. So this is a forward-looking bill, and this forward-looking bill does two things. One is to permit prospectively the deferral of part or all of the taxes based on the person's situation. And that, the bill is currently written, requires a year-by-year recertification, forward-looking. And presumably, if the house is ever sold, then the taxes would be come out of the proceeds of the sale. If we get to this point, and if there are changes, we would suggest, we meaning PLA and I think CLS would agree with this, that the process of recovering the taxes be on a shared equity basis. That not every dollar of deferred tax goes to the city, because what you want to do is you want the homeowner to continue to be interested in maintaining the home and in sharing the appreciation of the home, so you're not discouraging people from putting money into the home on the theory that, oh, well, what's the difference when it gets sold? I'm not going to get anything. But that's another discussion. But the primary thing is, one, that there's this forward-looking thing, and if the person's circumstances change, then the amount they pay could go up, so the amount of deferral could go down. The other very, very important piece of this this bill creates a right on the part of each homeowner to assistance, either from a housing counselor or an attorney, early in the process. And this assistance early in the process can often accomplish what you, Councilman Don, was suggesting, becoming aware of these alternatives where there might be some money, and taking advantage of them to the extent possible. One of the problems we see is also a problem which we haven't been able to resolve yet, and I'm hopeful we will be able to resolve with the Revenue Department, and that is the way the Revenue Department collects taxes. It generally, except with great difficulty, when it accepts taxes, it applies them to the oldest taxes that are due. So it's very difficult to get the Revenue Department to take a payment, even a partial payment, that could be applied to the current year's taxes, which would enable the homeowner to take advantage of the state tax rebate program. And the city is losing out, we believe, on hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of potential rebates, which aren't there because the homeowner can't show they paid last year's taxes, which is a requirement for getting the rebate. And there's a couple solutions we want for that. One is changes to the collection process to make it much easier for money to be applied to the current year taxes so that it's easier to get the rebate, and also the possibility of a city program which could front money to the homeowner to pay that year's taxes. Because once that year is paid, the homeowner would be entitled to a rebate for the amount that's paid, which would be a continuing rebate, which every year would essentially be a transfer from the state to the city on account of taxes.
Think of it as a smaller EITC.
Right.
We are leaving money on the table at the Department of Treasury.
Let me go back to this for a minute. You're saying there's a state program that would reimburse them 100% for their real estate taxes?
Up to $950.
Up to $950.
It's tiered by income again, so as your income increases, you get less back. It's between $350 and up to $975, I believe, dollars.
So we need to figure out how we can work within that program to make sure they get that money.
Correct.
Yes, and this has been a subject of discussion in the past, and I believe the Revenue Department may now be more receptive to that in the context of addressing what is becoming a more obvious problem, and that not only is the city losing money, but it's the current practices is targeting, I think, exactly the people we don't want to be targeting.
How do people qualify for that $950 state money real estate taxes?
You have to be age eligible or disabled, qualify as having a disability, and also income eligible along with age eligible. So it's essentially a senior citizen who is income eligible. Off the top of my head, I believe the single person eligibility is $2,300, but it tiers its way down.
The gentleman that was here before, sitting in the back row, does he qualify?
He would qualify.
Is he getting that money now?
He's not, because he hasn't been able to pay up. He's paying his current taxes in installments, so he hasn't paid in full. What a rebate what the program that Irwin's describing would do is advance him the funds so that his taxes would then be paid in full, and then the city would be able to get that rebate back from the state.
Okay, thank you. I have one other question. You're an attorney, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
This is just in my mind. I'm trying to figure something out. Some houses might have mortgages on them. So take an example of a $100,000 home with an $80,000 mortgage, and the city does a full deferral program. Does that lender have any rights, or they're going to be upset with us because we're pushing their position on the property higher up because we come before the mortgage company? Do they have any legal action against us?
They have no legal action I can see against the city. When you say us, you mean the city.
Yeah.
Would they be unhappy? I can't speak to whether they'd be unhappy or not, but I could say that if the process was one in which their present position was not threatened by the possibility of an immediate foreclosure, I don't think it would change significantly what's happening now.
But I could see where they might be upset. Take the example of a $100,000 townhouse and a $50,000 mortgage, and someone's in deferral for a long time, and the mortgage is still on the books, and that deferral exceeds the value of the property. They're going to get wiped out.
Well, you do raise a point that I don't think that would happen much these days, because most mortgages now require, as a condition of the mortgage, the escrowing of an amount for taxes and insurance. And now, so the question would be, if a person could apply for and get a deferment, would that be a default under the mortgage?
Right.
And that's a question we'd have to think about. Would not be, but...
Well, Councilman, I think most lenders would advance the funds to protect their interest. They would want themselves to be in first position. They typically, most mortgages cover that funds, and then we have to deal with a homeowner who come to us with a mortgage foreclosure. The population we're talking about, those 300 people that have come to CLS, those people by and large are folks who the mortgage is already paid off or there never was a mortgage. This really is another tier down from kind of the working class folks who have mortgages. We're talking about real deep poverty here.
Okay. All right, thank you very much for your testimony today. Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes, I just want to make two brief points. First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify.
Thank you.
As you know, housing counselors are key to the success of the ordinance. So we respectfully urge you to appropriately fund this program, specifically the housing counseling component, with resources above and beyond what Philadelphia can derive from CDBG. As you know, our current administration in Washington is threatening to take CDBG at zero. As you saw today, issues related to tangled title make it difficult for housing counselors to work on these issues, so supporting them is ever more important, especially in communities where these type of tangled title issues are very high, and those are communities where foreign-born residents live and limited English proficient populations. The number of limited English proficient people in Philadelphia is increasing, and so is the number of immigrants. The economic impact of immigrants in the realm of housing is substantial. We want to tap that and keep it alive. Immigrants occupy about 80,000 of the more than 600,000 owner-occupied units in the city. 50% of immigrants in the city are living in owner-occupied housing, and even unauthorized immigrants are doing their part, as 14,000 unauthorized immigrants in the city live in a home they own, according to the Migration Policy Institute. So we are excited that City Council is working on this. We support this effort. We want to continue to work with the city, especially as it ensures that LEP populations are not left out from accessing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilwoman Parker, then Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and let me start by thanking each of you for your testimony. First, Erwin, I want to go to your testimony. You include, and I thank you so much, this is the first time that I've seen a copy of this since the council president first distributed it some time ago, and I appreciate your including a copy of the map that our tech staff developed showing the 2016 property tax foreclosure filings and the list of homeowners. Now, this is important to me because this map defies the narrative that those who are in trouble as it relates to potentially losing their homes from reverse mortgages, from tax foreclosures, from predatory lending, or any of the other ills that we battle against, that they are just those in the city of Philadelphia that are living in deep poverty. And this is extremely important to me because while I see portions of my colleagues' districts included in this map, the entire 9th Councilmanic District that I represent is in this map. But listen to this. My district has one of the most highest home ownership rates in the city of Philadelphia. If the city's average is 52%, the 9th is about 60 to 61%. And we have regions that have up to 77 to 78% home ownership rates. So when we think about the people who are being impacted, I hope you will help us change the narrative so folks know these are not people sitting home, twiddling their thumbs, waiting for government to give them a handout. They were once proudly a part of our working class, moving on up, in the socioeconomic world, and all of a sudden, God struck and said, we're going to allow you the golden grace to grow older, okay, and become more seasoned. Now you're retired. You don't earn the same amount of income that you used to earn, and now you can barely afford to care for what was your greatest asset. Mm-hmm. So help us change the narrative about who's being impacted, and you start by making sure you distribute this map wherever you go so that when people begin to say, Tax foreclosures, reverse mortgages going into foreclosure, this only impacts poor people. You show them maps, this map, and you show them that this impacts black, white, brown people in neighborhoods across the city of Philadelphia, as it doesn't discriminate by zip code. Okay? They make a nickel over the income guidelines, so they usually aren't eligible for any programs that are offered. And now they're about to lose their greatest asset. Thank you, and thank Council President Clark for his leadership on this issue.
Thank you.
Amen?
Councilwoman Reynolds Brown.
Well, Councilwoman Parker has quite eloquently and elegantly articulated what was in my thoughts. Your authenticity and compassion for those who end up in deep poverty is truly admirable. And I think we should not miss the opportunity to acknowledge what you do every day on a daily basis, because you think it's not only the right thing to do, but ultimately it's people we know and love and don't know that end up in these awful, heart-wrenching, very sad circumstances.
Thank you.
We appreciate your important work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I just follow up on one point that Councilwoman Parker made? You know, a lot of the problems are a result of the success of the city. I mean, the problems of the people we're talking about. As Councilwoman Parker said, this is not just poor people. This is not just it's people who have spent their lives working and who now might just be over eligible for certain programs. But they're in their position often not because of anything they've done wrong, but because the city is now more attractive and the taxes are going up, so that they're being faced with high tax bills because their property values are going up, and the city is now more aggressive about increasing those values and collecting. And it seems to me that this bill, the way that it's fashioned, addresses a number of issues in actually a very elegant way, because it really encompasses what the Loop program was trying to do and a number of other programs by allowing there to be a deferral of some or all of the taxes based on a person's economic circumstances prospectively. And if properly structured, it could be a fairly efficient way of simply addressing those needs and also addressing the people who find themselves in neighborhoods that are increasing in value or gentrifying or however you want to call it. But it could be a bill that could very much allow people to stay in those neighborhoods, increase the diversity of those neighborhoods, and offset some of the tensions that we're seeing in some neighborhoods as they change.
And as Councilwoman Sanchez often says, and I've learned to understand and respect this, it should not have to be an either or. We should be able to do both, period. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll ask the clerk to read the title of Bill number 170555 and welcome Fred Purnell to come forward.
170555. An ordinance authorizing the Director of Planning and Development on behalf of the city to file applications with the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development for a community development block grant, to file applications to participate in Home Investment Partnership Program and the Emergency Solutions Grant Program, and to apply for housing opportunities for persons with AIDS, and to file applications with the Commonwealth to obtain grants under the Act of April 12, 1956, Section 4, as amended to prevent and eliminate blight, authorizing the Director of Planning and Development and the Director of Commerce to file applications to obtain their grants from the Commonwealth, authorizing the Director of Commerce to use the Section 108 Loan Guarantee Program, and authorizing the Director of Planning and Development and the Director of Commerce to enter into all understandings and assurances contained in such applications and take all necessary action to accept grants, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your patience.
Good afternoon, Councilwoman Blackwell,
Thank you.
members of the Finance Committee, and City Council. I'm Frederick Purnell, Deputy Director of Housing and Community Development, and I'll present testimony on behalf of the administration on Bill number 170555,
which permits the city to apply for the federal CDBG, home, HOPWA, and ESG funds, and for state funds from DCED. To receive this funding from HUD, the city is required to submit an approved consolidated plan to HUD by August 15, 2017. That consolidated plan will also include a budget for the Housing Trust Fund and other sources. We have supplied written testimony, and I will be presenting a condensed version of that same testimony. The city anticipates $38.807 million in CDBG funds and $8.402 million in home funds. We anticipate Housing Trust Fund earnings of $11 million by the end of FY18. The consolidated plan 2018 through 2022 and the annual action plan 2017-2018 outlines our spending plans. As required by HUD, the consolidated plan also includes a housing and homeless needs assessment, a housing market analysis, and a strategic plan. Our goals and strategic actions are designed to meet Philadelphia's high priority for housing and community development needs. They are creating affordable home ownership and rental housing opportunities, preserving existing affordable home ownership and rental housing, reducing homelessness and expanding special need housing opportunities, foster open access to all housing and community resources and programs, address the education, economic, and income needs of people and neighborhoods, strengthen community assets and manage vacant land to improve quality of life, promote fair housing and access to opportunities for all Philadelphians. A number of goals will receive increased attention in FY18. Using revenue from the approved by City Council last year, this summer the city will release the first $20 million of a $60 million bond to support critical home improvements. Today, PHDC has a backlog of over 7,400 homes in the Basic Systems Repair Program, Weatherization, and Adaptive Mod programs. PHDC has already started work on these backlog cases, and by the end of the summer, over $6 million in home repairs will be underway. Over the next 3 years, the $60 million, combined with existing levels of CDBG and HTF funding, will largely eliminate the backlog of all 3 housing preservation programs and allow thousands of families to stay in their homes. As I've discussed with many of you, and I want to personally thank you all for the individual briefings you allowed me and my staff to give most of your offices, we will be developing a reporting template so you can keep track of as we make progress to eliminating the backlog. Preservation of existing affordable housing is also a high priority. To preserve rental units nearing the end of their compliance period or in need of capital investment, the city has awarded funding to support 7 preservation projects. In FY18, the city has allocated an additional $1.5 million in CDBG for neighborhood-based rental preservation projects, again targeted at those projects with expiring tax credit commitments. Philadelphia homeowners continue to face mortgage and, more recently, tax and reverse mortgage foreclosures. Our award-winning foreclosure prevention program has saved more than 10,000 homes from foreclosure and will continue. We are working with the Reinvestment Fund to develop a strategy around reverse mortgage foreclosures, and we look forward to working with Council President Clark's office and your offices to address tax foreclosures. These strategies help keep homeowners, many of whom reside in Philadelphia middle market neighborhoods, in their homes. About 1 in 7 renters are experiencing eviction in Philadelphia. In FY18, the city will make funds available to develop a strategy to help renters avoid eviction and remain in their houses. Other programs will continue at level funding in FY18. Affordable housing and special need housing production programs, cleaning and greening of vacant lots through the Philadelphia Land Care Program, business and community-based organization assistance, job training through Youth Bill, and tenant-based rental assistance. To increase economic opportunity, the city will continue to use CDBG to support programs aimed at small businesses and neighborhood commercial corridors, including technical assistance to micro businesses, small business loans, business attraction and expansion activities, and organizational capacity building. The plan includes $7.3 million from the Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS program, rental assistance to allow 700 people with HIV to rent their own apartments or homes is the greatest need and the largest single use of our HOPWA program funds. The city anticipates $3.5 million in emergency solution grant funds. These funds are administered by the Office of Homeless Services and are matched with $3.5 million in city general funds to support emergency shelter, homeless prevention, rapid rehousing, and housing retention services and programs. It is important to note that while our federal funding remains level for FY18, the threat of substantial cuts to CDBG, HOME, HOPWA, and ESG is a serious concern. We will continue to work with our partners to highlight our achievements with these funds and also to work to identify new revenue sources. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present this testimony. We ask that council suspend the rules to permit first reading at the next council session, and my colleagues and I are here to answer any specific questions that any members of the committee or the chairperson may have.
Thank you, and we thank your team as well. Any questions?
I neglected to introduce my colleagues. With me is David Thomas, the interim director of PHDC, Melissa Long, the deputy of DHCD, Karen Fagley, deputy of Commerce, and Gregory Heller, the executive director of Redevelopment Authority.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Panel 2, Lauren Asher, Elizabeth Shea, Keith Green, Will Gonzalez, and Sarah Young.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Blackwell and members of the Committee on Finance. My name is Lauren Asher. I am a supervising attorney at Philadelphia VIP. I first want to express our gratitude to DHCD and the city for your continued support of VIP's homeownership work. VIP provides free legal services to low-income Philadelphians by referring them to private attorneys who handle their cases pro bono. We recruit, train, and support those volunteer attorneys. The funding provided through DHCD allows us to assist over 500 clients per year with tangle title, real estate tax, and mortgage foreclosure issues. The city general funding supports the Tangle Title Fund, what we refer to as TTF, which pays for legal and administrative costs associated with clients obtaining title to properties. Through our work, we see the prevalence of tangle title issues. We estimate a minimum of 14,000 homes in Philadelphia have tangle title problems. Many of those folks also owe back real estate taxes. From July 2016 through April 2017, VIP assisted 172 tangle title clients, over half of whom had real estate tax issues as well. We also do mortgage foreclosure work. We support volunteer attorneys who provide ongoing and emergency assistance in the mortgage foreclosure diversion program. From July 2016 to April of this year, we matched 46 mortgage foreclosure clients with volunteer attorneys who work in tandem with housing counselors. And in addition to these numbers, VIP supported volunteer attorneys in over 250 cases that were already referred at the start of this fiscal year. The Tangle Title Fund pays for costs associated with clearing title. The biggest expenses are probate filing fees at the Register of Wills and especially transfer taxes. The average cost per application to resolve tangle title problems is over $1,200, and that number is increasing. Since fiscal year 2012-2013, the TTF had been getting $50,000 per year, but in 2016-2017, TTF received only $30,000, which ran out in April. Although we did find out on Friday that we will be receiving an additional $20K for the remainder of this fiscal year, so we want to express our gratitude for that. Since 2014, we've seen a dramatic increase in dollar amounts of TCF disbursements when AVI took effect because probate filing fees and transfer taxes are based on property values. In 2014-2015, more than $24,000 was spent on transfer taxes alone. To date this year, we spent $21,000 on transfer taxes. The current proposed TTF budget for 2018 is $30,000, which means there will only be a few $1,000s left to pay any expenses other than transfer taxes. If the TCF budget does not increase, clients will have to either abandon their hope of getting title to their homes, or will have to take money from their budgets for food and utilities, things like that, to pay title costs. Since the CDBG money cannot be spent on TCF, we respectfully ask for City Council's help to find money to bring the TCF budget back up to $50,000. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name's Beth Shea. I'm the Director of Homeownership Rights for the Senior Law Center, and it's my pleasure, Madam Councilwoman and Council staff, to appear today to tell you what Senior Law Center's been up to protect the senior homeowners in the city of Philadelphia. So I want to talk about the consolidated plan for 2018-2022 and impress upon you how your mission and our mission at Senior Law Center align. Under the proposed consolidated plan, there are 7 core goals identified by the city, and we're ready to assist the city to achieve several of these. The first, preserve affordable homeowner and rental housing. So for the 3rd year, City Council has funded the Senior Law Center's triage program and the residential mortgage foreclosure diversion program, which is an efficient, effective model to give senior homeowners coming into mortgage foreclosure legal assistance and assistance to their DHCD-funded housing counselors. Senior Law Center also leads the effort to inform seniors about the free home repair programs that the city and state have available. We've created a flyer to circulate this information, but we don't stop there. Seniors frequently contact us after they've had a reverse mortgage to pay for home repairs and are not satisfied with those repairs. We testified about this problem in March before City Council. We have 2 practice groups in the Philadelphia community pursuing contractor fraud claims against contractors who are taking money from seniors and not making the needed repairs or making shoddy repairs. Recently, Philadelphians have been alerted through articles in the Inquirer to the growing problem posed by tangled title properties, especially in gentrifying neighborhoods. The point was made that because it costs $300,000 to build a single unit of affordable housing, the city will never solve its housing problems with new construction. Therefore, the reinvestment fund has suggested another approach. The fund estimates there are 34,000 occupied houses that could be made habitable for less than $30,000 each. It's a bargain. But first, the city must provide legal assistance to those residing in these tangled title properties to clear the title and make the resident owner the owner of the property so they're eligible for these funds. The second goal, reduce homelessness and expand special needs housing opportunities. Foreclosure of reverse mortgages is a uniquely senior problem since borrowers have to be 62 years of age or older, and it's an ongoing problem in Philadelphia with 649 reverse mortgage foreclosures filed between 2007 and September 2016. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, who insures these loans, understands the stress these homeowners are under with these foreclosing loans, and forcing the relocation of these seniors may contribute to hastening the death of these borrowers. So HUD carved out an exception to foreclosures for borrowers who are 80 years old and older who are suffering long-term physical limitations. Senior Law Center is uniquely qualified to advocate for these frail elderly seniors and get their foreclosures stopped and keep them in their homes.
In 2016, senior law worked on 86 delinquent property tax cases for Philadelphia seniors. While we are proud of these efforts, we realize that many frail and elderly homeowners may be losing their homes to tax foreclosure, as was mentioned earlier, and Senior Law Center looks forward to working with the city to explore the creation of a similar protection for seniors facing real estate property tax foreclosure. We hope the city will follow the lead of the federal government and recognize that foreclosing tax delinquent properties resided in by disabled seniors may harm their health and must be avoided. The goal, foster open access to all housing and community resource programs. Senior Law Center conducts community education, provides telephone counseling about all available senior resources. We take seriously our role as protector of senior rights, and we frequently educate throughout the city on senior housing topics, such as reverse mortgage pitfalls, property tax assistance program for senior homeowners, the importance of untangling title to the family home, and the need to write a will in order to keep the title from getting tangled when ownership is passed to the younger generation. We also appear on panels in senior centers and throughout the community, presenting information in English and Spanish on how to protect yourself from deed fraud and how to hire a repair contractor. We enroll seniors in tax programs over the phone while they are in diversion court, lowering their real estate taxes and making it more likely they can afford a monthly mortgage payment that will permit them to reside in their homes. Promote fair housing and access to opportunity. Just last week, I spoke about reverse mortgage servicing problems at the National Consumer Law Center's Mortgage Conference, which was held here in Philadelphia. Some of the mortgage problems dealt with simple servicing issues, such as mortgage companies' failure to provide large print notices so they are legible to seniors with failing eyesight. Some are more onerous, such as enforcing short deadlines on seniors who are often overwhelmed and unable to respond on time. With increased financial support, we hope to bring these servicing issues to the government's attention by filing administrative complaints with HUD. So through representation, education, advocacy, we serve over 5,000 seniors each year. We, in our work, save homes, fight abuse, protect rights, and it's a wise investment, as are the grandparents, senior veterans, older homeowners, family members, and residents we are proud to serve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will interrupt a moment. The chair now recognizes Councilman Greenlee. We will momentarily conclude our hearing. We'll return in a moment, and we will enter our meeting to allow for an announcement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Unfortunately, I have to leave the hearing at this point. I wish to be recorded as voting aye on all bills being reported from this committee today, with the appropriate rule suspension to permit first reading in next session, and I wish to be voted aye on any amendments to those bills, with the exception of Bill number 161061, in which I wish to be counted as voting no if it should be called up for a vote. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. We will now conclude the meeting and go back to our public hearing and recognize our next speaker.
Good afternoon. I'm Julianne Schrader Ortega. I'm the Vice President and Chief of Programs at the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you this afternoon to share the dramatic support that DHCD funding makes in neighborhoods across Philadelphia through the PHS Philadelphia Land Care Program. I'm joined today by my colleague Keith Green, who's the director of the Philadelphia Land Care Program. PHS exists to connect people with horticulture and together create more beautiful, sustainable, and healthy communities. We work collaboratively with people and organizations of all backgrounds to tackle the toughest challenges through plants, gardens, and gardening. The Philadelphia Land Care Program is a strategic partnership between the City of Philadelphia and the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. For the last 17 years, the Land Care Program has been cleaning, greening, and maintaining vacant land in neighborhoods throughout the city. Currently, PHS maintains over 12,000 vacant lots, which is over 30% of the vacant land in Philadelphia.
The Land Care program also serves as an incubator that helps develop small businesses and creates jobs. 17 landscape contractors and 18 community organizations participate in this work, and together they employ close to 300 people every season. Additionally, hired contractors reflect the diversity of the communities they serve. 40% of the participating landscape contractors are minority certified, and another 30% are minority owned. The 18 community organizations that participate in this program hire local residents from their neighborhood to perform the maintenance work, giving them a direct role in keeping their communities clean and safe. And since the start of the program, over 900 parcels, close to 10% of the vacant lots managed, have been developed into new homes, commercial businesses, neighborhood parks, and gardens, helping to restore the urban fabric of neighborhoods throughout the city. As demonstrated in numerous studies, the land care treatment is a low-cost, high-return solution that improves health and safety outcomes for neighborhood residents. Every dollar invested in the vacant lot remediation returns $333 to society at large in reduced gun violence. And this treatment has been shown to significantly reduce crime, lower stress, and increase exercise. Studies have also found that land care increases the values of homes nearby the lots that are cleaned and greened by an average of $41,000, which means that for every dollar spent to clean and green vacant land, housing wealth increases by $224. Additionally, land care has improved access to green space for over 45,000 residents and intercepts over 2 million gallons of stormwater runoff each year. For the second year, in addition to Land Care's work in community development, PHS is facilitating our reentry initiative, which creates pathways from prison to entry-level positions in landscaping and horticulture fields. Through this initiative, PHS has placed 80 returning citizens over the past 2 years, many of whom were hired last year and are returning this season, and we maintain 2,000 additional Philadelphia Land Bank sites. Over the last 2 months, 24 individuals have graduated from a 5-week paid intensive training in horticulture, landscaping, and workplace leadership skills. Most of the graduates have been hired by land care contractors and community organizations and have been working since the start of the season in April. Since January, PHS has placed close to 40 individuals through this initiative. New graduate Camille Torrance, who received a supervisory role on the landscape crew at the Brewerytown Sharswood Community Civic Association, has said this about the training and placement program. The boot camp opened doors for me. It helped me to get a better job and maybe start my own business. Currently, the level of funding for FY 2018 does not include the $500,000 necessary to continue the Land Care Reentry Initiative. We are asking that this funding be restored to allow us to continue this important program that trains and connects returning citizens with available jobs in landscaping fields. In addition to placing 40 individuals in landscaping positions, this funding also enables us to maintain 2,000 additional Philadelphia Land Bank parcels and supports 5 community land care organizations that were added last year through this initiative, all of which are crucial to the success of the program and help us deliver on our mission to connect people with horticulture and together create healthy and sustainable communities. From reducing blight in neighborhoods to building the capacity of local small businesses and connecting returning citizens with available landscaping positions, PHS is proud to work with DHCD to improve our city. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify, and Keith and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you again for inviting me to testify. Today's double duty. First of all, my name is Will Gonzalez. I'm the Executive Director of SEBA. We commend DHCD for the work that it presents in the report, and we are proud to partner with it through our work and that of our member organizations. We also, however, as good friends, are not shy about constructive criticisms due to our shared and mutual interest and commitment to equitable community development. We look forward to building on the relationship that we have with DHCD for years to come, especially as the Latino community continues its rapid growth. As you know, the Latino community is the largest limited English proficient population in the city, and so we have some special interest in making sure that what Council was so successful at putting through that charter change, Section 860, which requires that
equal access is provided to city services for all people who are limited English proficient. We have to give credit where credit is due in terms of DHCD for listening to us as we butted heads literally over the last 6 months, 9 months on issues related to language access. To their credit, they supported the in-service for housing counselors regarding their need to abide to the charter change of federal law to provide equal access to people who are limited English proficient. That said, however, we know that we need to remain vigilant and in true candor are concerned about the implementation of the home repair program and the addressing the the long list of people who are in need of that service. We commend again City Council for attacking that list and addressing that list, but we want to both remind DHCD and PHDC to please incorporate the needs of limited English proficient populations in addressing that list and in keeping the list open. We are committed to working with the city on the success of DHCD and the home repair program, and we look forward to continuing to be constructive critics and helpful hands. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Blonda Reynolds Brown?
Yes, I want to highlight and celebrate the work of the PHS program, and thank you for your detailed testimony, but thank you more for crafting a program that really goes to the spirit and the tenor of a lot of concerns raised by council members, that we look out for returning citizens and immigrants who live in Philadelphia, local residents, and that you are intentional in making sure that those you do contract with are also from our city. And so with regards to returning citizens, is there an age limit?
How you doing? I'm
Good
Keith Green,
afternoon.
Director of Philadelphia Land Care. We do not have an age limit. Actually, a lot of the people that's participated in the program has been the age of 18 to, I believe, 55 was the oldest that we had.
I've already texted my staff to ask us to get brochures or whatever. So for the record, how long is the program? Once a person is identified, recruited, and enrolled, how long is the training prior to them transitioning to a real job?
The training is about a month long, and what we do is we train them in basic landscaping, how to use weed whackers, lawn mowers, riding mowers, walk-behinds, of that stuff. Training them how to identify weeds and plant material. And then we also identify employers that want to play a part in this this program. And I will also say that all the people that's participated in the program are all local small businesses, and that they hired more than just one. A lot of them, they've employed like 2 to 3 people at a time.
Now putting my former social worker hat on, are there any wraparound services, for lack of a better word, that helps them to stay on track and on course given other challenges they may have to grapple with in their lives?
We do work with RISE.
Oh, okay.
And we also work with other organizations around the city, like the Men and Women of Excellence, Ready, Willing, and Able. Okay. And
excellent.
I believe ODAT.
Excellent.
That actually specialize in those types of services.
And how old is this program now?
We have our R2R program has been in existence for, I believe, close to 9 years.
Yep, PHS has been working at the prison since 2006, and we have a different landscaping, or have done landscaping training and placed folks in jobs, returning citizens in jobs throughout that program.
Terrific.
But this has been for the last 2 years, we've been really marrying our land care initiative with returning citizens in a new way.
I clearly remember in my second term when there was a lot of friendly debate on how we could do better with regards to those returning from or leaving, making a transition from the prisons back into the real world, and where the opportunity was. And the notion of landscaping actually was a part of a friendly debate here, so to now see that it's real and it's a tangible initiative is admirable. So thank you for your work.
Thank you.
And I'll take plenty of those brochures.
Oh, I was about to say, if you want some, I have some right here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We talk every day about this issue of returning citizens.
Yes, we do.
We're happy to hear about it, and certainly we appreciate all the help. There are so many meetings. Could you share some more? Yeah. Could the staff please help? Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Thank you very much. We want to call panel 3, Alice Wright, Ruth Bazemore, Max Ray Reek, and Carolyn Plack. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you very much. Please identify yourself and begin your testimony.
Hi there. I'm Max Ray Reek. I'm a member of ACT UP Philadelphia. This is my first time doing this, so I'm a little nervous. Good afternoon, Chairperson Blackwell and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to give testimony. I'm a member of ACT UP Philadelphia, and ACT UP is concerned with ending the AIDS crisis, which is still a crisis and becoming even more so in the last few years, despite major medical advancements. One main driver of the crisis now, and the reason I am here, is housing. The City of Philadelphia recently released the first needs assessment for housing for people with HIV and AIDS in over 20 years. People living with HIV and AIDS, according to this needs assessment, are about 3 times more likely to experience homelessness than the general population, with women, African American and Hispanic people, and transgender individuals at disproportionately high risk of experiencing homelessness. Estimates indicate that there are nearly 600 Philadelphians living with HIV/AIDS currently experiencing homelessness in Philadelphia, and only about 400 slots in the Housing Assistance for People with AIDS program, all of which are filled and which rarely turn over. For homeless individuals with HIV, waiting times for permanent housing are 6 months or more. For people considered not officially homeless, the wait list will close on July 1st, with wait times for those currently on the list estimated at 7 to 8 years. This means the wait list is closed for people living on a relative or friend's couch or floor without their own key, people trading sex for a place to sleep, people paying 50 to 90% of their income for rent, and people living in a home that is making them sick through mold, damp, infestations, etc. For people with HIV, these situations are particularly dangerous. In addition, HIV, like tuberculosis and hepatitis C, is a communicable chronic illness. When someone can't access medication, their viral load increases and they can pass HIV on to others. While safe, stable, affordable housing helps people use drugs or have sex more safely, the biggest benefit of housing is that it reduces the individual's and the community's viral load. Health is prevention, and housing is health. A study in Buffalo, New York just confirmed that permanent supportive housing programs reduce viral load and increase CD4 count. An older study from Philadelphia confirmed that for people with HIV, safe, stable, affordable housing reduces emergency room visits and healthcare costs. In Philadelphia, according to a recent study by the Federal Reserve Bank, from 2000 to 2014, we've lost 23,000 affordable rental units. When Project Home last week opened a first-come, first-serve affordable housing building with just 88 units, hundreds of families spent the night lined up around the block hoping to get a slot.
Recently, several properties funded under the low-income housing tax credit are coming up on their 20-year time limit, and developers can evict current tenants and sell the apartments at market rate. Finding new affordable housing for these displaced tenants has proved very difficult. And finally, the opioid crisis in Philadelphia is underscoring the need for housing solutions that save lives, even for people in active addiction. Housing First programs locally and nationwide have had higher success rates than transitional housing programs that require sobriety to earn permanent housing. In short, we have an affordable housing crisis in Philadelphia, and for people with communicable chronic illness, mental health struggles, and/or addiction, it's a deadly problem that impacts the community's health. So I'm here to urge Council, as you consider Bill 170555, to consider taking 3 additional steps. Increase the funding available specifically for affordable housing in Philadelphia. Programs like density bonuses and finally finishing our inclusionary zoning law are important. Other resources to look for include pilots or payments in lieu of taxes from large nonprofits, capping the 10-year tax abatement, creating a fund paid into by entities phasing out of the tax abatement period to begin paying their first year's taxes slowly over time or voluntarily paying in additional tax-deductible donations over time. Considering a distributor-level tax on home improvement products like cans of paint that will have minimal impact to the individual consumer but will help low-income Philadelphians share in the wealth of our housing boom. The second thing is to focus more city funding on affordable housing through the Housing Trust Fund or a new additional mechanism on support for tenants. Current programs of the Housing Trust Fund are focused on developers and homeowners, but we must also focus on homelessness prevention for tenants and scatter-site tenant-based rental assistance programs. Scatter-site tenant-based rental assistance is key to Housing First and any permanent supportive housing programs because individuals can move into neighborhoods of their choice, case managers can build relationships with individual landlords, and not in my backyard problems are avoided. For people with drug and alcohol addiction, mental illness, and communicable chronic illness, this kind of housing support is vital. And finally, use housing as a tool for health care. By this, we mean prioritizing individuals with communicable chronic illness across all housing programs, including PHA, the Housing Trust Fund, etc. Coordinate between the Health Department, OHS, DBHS to keep track of data on community health and tie it to housing. Work with Medicaid and insurers to reimburse as much supportive housing service as we possibly can, providing technical assistance and even upfront funding if needed. Make a clear definition of Housing First and hold all city-funded programs accountable to it, and be clear that housing is healthcare and healthcare is prevention. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bazemore. It's very nice to have you here today and always great to see you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. And I hope I don't get too emotional because I'm a community activist, and I really am speaking today on a situation that I represent funding from SCOP, which is Support Community Outreach Program.
Okay, please give us your name for the record, Ms.
Oh,
Bazemore.
I'm sorry. My name is Miss Ruth Bazemore.
Thank you.
And the abbreviation is called SCOP, which is funded by Department of Human Service. We have been receiving funding for years, and we represent a cross-section of the city that we basically do outreach for youth in our communities. What I'm speaking on today is I represent a Block Captains Coalition of Haddington, which represents 14 city blocks of block captains. Our boundaries are from 52nd to 55th Market to Race, and we have been together for approximately 18 years. We started out by being funded by William Penn Foundation to Our Children's Future with Health. Later, we joined SCOP because the funding stopped. SCOP actually is the most beautiful program that
we represent all of these different communities, churches, and different organizations, that we give help to our community and our children. But we are a reimbursing organization, which means that we submit a grant, and if we are lucky enough to be funded, we have to actually use our money first, and then we get reimbursed by the program. What happened this year, I should go back, that DHS now in 2010 has more or less been more like privatized, and it's been joined by a group called Community Umbrella Agencies, which we say is coolers. The coolers actually have taken over basically our funding. Just this year, 2 months ago, the coolers advised us that they were taking 20% of our funding that was already advocated to them. That they also said that we were not going to have our picnic, which is a big thing that we have been doing for the last 25 years or more, which actually is one of the big events that we give to our poor community. My question is, there was no real meeting of where the 20% went to, and how do you do this when it's a contract? Nobody can tell us what is going on, but my question is, it's my money. And so we should have been able to use our monies to have what we always had, was a picnic for our children. And with more and more, since all these different groups have come in supposedly to help our community, we're finding out that we no longer have a voice. We seem to be not at the table when all these things are negotiated. But the fact is, we're being told what we can do or what we're not going to do. And the bottom part is, it's our money and it's our time, and we spend so much trying to actually help our community, because this $5,000 grant maximum has not been increased for the last 20 years, and everybody don't get that. But the bottom line is, we have to spend our money before we get reimbursed, and the reimbursement sometimes does not necessarily meet their criteria, so the money comes out of our pocket. But that's not why I am so outraged. My outrage is, we really do not know what part we play with the coolers. The coolers basically is an adoption and foster care. And then we basically have our own SCOP, and then we were told to join with our EPICs. Our EPICs and our coolers have not merged together, so we're not even sure what part we play. But the bottom part is, our SCOP family love our community, and we use all our resources to make our community and our children, who gets nothing, to get what little resources we get to make it work. And my question also is, I would like to understand the accountability of why we must show monies and where it goes, but we do not know how the cooler or any of the other groups who's supposed to be helping us. It doesn't happen. I partner a lot with Barry School, and the bottom line is, the other day I went to Barry School. There is no after-school programs. There is nothing. And we have the highest amount of children of needs that they get nothing. And when I told them that we were going to do things, because I do things with them, take them on trips, and we're going to do the breakfast, but it's not fair. And I would like to know what happens, or where the accountability of some schools and some programs are getting everything, but our community who can't speak gets nothing, and we blame the parents and our children for actions that is committed for them because there's no outreach. So I am outraged, because I think there has to be an accounting. There has to be, we need to understand where our monies are spent in our community that's designated according to the census tract. Why do some communities get nothing or very little, and some gets a lot of different programs and supports from other groups, and our children is criticized, and their parents are criticizing for not being on target, when the fact is only the different groups of us who love our children in our community is not made whole. If we had brought all of our children from these programs, it would make you really, because our children are precious. And when we take them to Washington and New York and all these different places, we have no problem, because our children are glad to be there, and they know how to behave, and they know we love them. But it's not fair. It really is not fair for people to take away from what we're entitled to, and blame us for the condition that you placed us in. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Any comments? Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll ask the clerk to read the title of bill. This is an amendment for 161061.
An ordinance authorizing city officials to file articles of incorporation to establish a nonprofit corporation that shall be called the Philadelphia School Teachers Reimbursement Fund, Inc., for the purposes of reimbursing personal money spent by teachers of the Philadelphia School District for the purchase of supplies, materials, and equipment needed for their classrooms.
Thank you very much. We're going to ask the Chief Education Officer to hold up a minute, because we have the president of the Retired Teachers Association School District who has to leave. So would you come forward, and then we'll have Otis Hackney, Chief Education Officer, the Mayor's Office of Education, to testify. Welcome. Please identify yourself for the record and begin your testimony.
Good afternoon. My name is Emily Taylor. I'm a retired art educator with the School District of Philadelphia.
Thank you, City Councilwoman Janie Blackwell and members of City Council and the Finance Committee for providing the opportunity for me to testify in support of Bill 161061, the Philadelphia Teacher Reimbursement Fund. My name is Emily Taylor, and I'm a retired art educator, having served as a teacher and teacher support specialist for art education for 39 years with the School District of Philadelphia. During my career, I have spent thousands of dollars for supplies to support my art program. I was provided a budget to start and build a program at the 2 schools of my employment, but despite having a budget, I did spend my own money to purchase resources and supplies that I would otherwise not have in my classroom. When I started my position as teacher support specialist for art education, I became increasingly aware of the need for monies for supplies as schools suffered from reduced funding. Schools hired art teachers with little to no funding for their programs. As schools closed, the art department quickly redistributed art supplies to be given to schools in need. Teachers have conducted methods to raise funds such as art programs and exhibitions, auctions, and community fundraisers to supplement their school budgets. Despite these efforts, teachers continue to spend their own money for materials. They would quickly spend the $100 allotment provided by the district, which is available to every teacher. This is not the way to support our students and programs in our communities. There is a need for equal opportunities for teachers and schools to receive reimbursement for purchased materials outside of the school allotment. There is a need for a vehicle of financial support that directly connects with the teachers. It is my hope that the proposed teacher allotment reimbursement bill is passed to provide such an opportunity because our students and teachers deserve it. I would like to thank Councilman David O. for introducing this bill, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Bill 161061. And I ask the City Council's consideration towards the passing of this bill. Thank you.
I have a question.
Councilwoman Blondo Reynolds Brown.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for your participation and for paying attention to an issue that all of us here on City Council care about when it comes to finding innovative ways to figure out how we can deliver what all of our young people and children deserve, arts education. We must ask, or I feel compelled to ask, are you aware of another, it's called the Fund for the School District of Philadelphia, which currently exists, and my limited understanding of it allows for the support services and programs within the school district. Are you aware that that funding currently exists?
No, actually, I became more aware of it just through this process and learning what is available through the introduction of the reimbursement bill by Councilman O.
Okay.
But as a teacher, many of us are not aware of programs such as that, especially if it goes directly to the school and the school gets reimbursement for some specific need that we may not be aware of it. I, as a teacher, have never had the opportunity to get any kind of reimbursement
or access
other than the $100 that we would get from the school district. So to answer your question, no.
Okay. All right, then you should simply be aware of that, because that is one of the factors in our deliberations around this measure. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Otis Hackney, we will certainly invite you to come forward. And as you all may know, he is the Chief Education Officer, Mayor's Office of Education. We'll still ask him to identify himself for the record and then make his testimony.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Otis Hackney, and I'm the Chief Education Officer for the Mayor's Office of Education. I would like to begin by thanking Councilwoman Blackwell and Councilman O and the members of the Committee on Finance for inviting me to offer testimony today on Bill number 161061, which would establish a nonprofit corporation to reimburse School District of Philadelphia teachers for a portion of out-of-pocket expenses spent on classroom supplies and equipment. I appreciate the important issue that this bill seeks to address, and I applaud efforts to support our amazing teachers. Because the School District of Philadelphia does not receive sufficient state funding to meet the comprehensive needs of our schools, educators often spend their own money on classroom supplies. I experienced this firsthand both as a teacher, when I was a teacher at Germantown High School, and also as a school administrator here in the city of Philadelphia, especially at South Philadelphia High School. However, this bill creates a potential duplication of services for supporting teachers across the district. Earlier this year, I joined the Board of Directions for the Fund for the School District of Philadelphia. The Fund, an independent 501c3, not for-profit organization that raises and administers philanthropic contributions to provide support services and programs within district schools. The fund's existing organizational structure can be utilized to fulfill this task in lieu of creating a new nonprofit entity to provide a similar service. I thank you again for the opportunity to testify, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Hackney, for your testimony. I just wanted you, particularly because of Ms. Emily Taylor's comments in response to Councilwoman Reynolds Brown's question regarding her knowledge of the Fund for the School District of Philadelphia's fund and the potential duplications of services in her response. In addition to that, I appreciate your acknowledging the out-of-pocket expense that occurs on a natural basis for those who are in the classroom, teachers and administrators. Unfortunately, you walk both sides, and you know there are 3 teachers, and I think even 4. I'm not sure if Councilman O himself may have been in the classroom. Can't remember, but I know Blackwell, Reynolds, Brown, and Parker are both certified teachers in English, I believe. So I just wanted, and Emily was just here, to note that this is an issue, and it is one that does demand our attention and interest, and it is my hope that with Councilman O having raised such a substantive matter, that the administration will work with the councilman in a very meaningful way to try to come up with a solution that is not viewed from a public perception and or the technical substance of how it will work is not viewed as a duplication of services, because the councilman raises an issue that is valid based on the lack of funding that we know we receive, and you acknowledged it in your testimony from the state perspective, and it is an issue that I think deserves our attention. So I wanted to commend Councilman O for raising this issue, to talk about the expenses that teachers and administrators incur, and work with us in a way that we can find some common ground to address the issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
And can you comment on your willingness to work with the councilman?
Yes. I think with me being here talking about what resources are available or the infrastructure that exists to getting the word out to teachers. So as I was sitting here hearing that teachers may not know about the fund, how do we make sure that they are aware, the teachers and building principals, of how to utilize that, so that way we can cover the cost of different projects or expenses that teachers incur. I can tell you, as a former teacher and principal, I've come out of pocket many times. My wife reminded me over the weekend when I was thinking about today how much we spent over the years in terms of instructional supplies, but also helping children, like buying shoes, clothes, food, that I know that we have done, the Hackneys have done over the years, including Principal Hackney, in terms of helping to close the gap on different programs that we always come out of pocket often. So how do we better utilize dollars in our schools to so that way we can cover the cost? Some creative ways that I was able, if we were ever to get when I was able to get philanthropic dollars contributed to South Philadelphia High School, we would do things small like mini grants, so that way a teacher could put in a request and ask for a certain amount and really be thoughtful about how they would utilize those dollars in the classroom. So there are ways to be really responsive and to the needs of teachers, so that way we can limit how they have to come out of pocket, but definitely letting them know about how the structure of the fund is already in place to do exactly what you want it to do. And those dollars could be earmarked for schools and for special projects within those schools within the fund.
Thank you. Councilman O.
Thank you, Chairwoman, and thank you, Councilman Parker, and thank you, Chief Executive Officer Otis Hackney. You are, just of great reputation as a principal and as a teacher. I will say my concerns are this. I am very happy to work in any way. I'm just one of 17 legislators, but I also have to do my part. My concern is one that, starting with this, that the issue of teachers spending their own money, and for the most part, the problem for our schools is that there's great inequity, and so what has balanced the fact that some schools have more, some schools have less? It's been the teachers who actually spend their own money to buy what is necessary, and as employees of the school district, first of all, we don't expect employees to supply their own material, let alone for the schools, to purchase basically fundamental necessary items. But they do, and there has not been a satisfactory mechanism to account for that, record it, make it transparent to the public. And even I, as a councilman, don't know how much money teachers and even parents are spending to support schools, classrooms, and other things. The thing that has been available to teachers that they seem to all know about, and it is not any other reimbursement program than $100 for the year. Again, for the second time that we've had a hearing, we just happened to go out to a fast food place. It's actually Burger King. 4 kids, my wife buying food for all of them and a cousin. It costs $47. $47 for Burger King. Teachers getting reimbursed $100 for 30 kids or more for the year is woefully, tragically, horribly inefficient. And I understand that there are big fish to fry. All I'm saying is trying to fry all these big fish and solve the entire school district problem, to me, is, I'll say, inadequate. If the fund for the school district of Philadelphia will commit to establishing a separately created fund, that its sole and only purpose is to reimburse teachers up to $5,000. And that's been a point of contention. People say like $5,000. Yeah, $5,000, up to $5,000, not $5,000, but $100, $500 is completely inadequate. And I understand there's challenges about funding. The creation of a fund to reimburse teachers is just the creation of an entity. There has been no allocation of money for this. It's not costing the school district or the city anything. If you create the entity solely dedicated to reimbursing teachers up to $5,000, vetted and looked at by former teachers, then the challenge is upon whoever created it, in this case primarily I think me and all the other council members that may be interested, to find the funds wherever we find it, corporations, foundations, to provide that kind of funding. Up till now, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, we have asked if the administration would be willing to compromise if we reduced $5,000 to $2,500, or compromise from $5,000 to $1,000, would the administration support the creation of the fund? The answer has been no. And it seems to be around the amount of money, number one, which I can't understand. Secondly, the administration and I understand, and I can say, you could correct me if I'm wrong, the fund for the School District of Philadelphia has not committed to creating a dedicated funding source to reimburse teachers. There are a lot of things on that plate, and teachers' reimbursements historically have been very low priority. I would just say that, from the top point of view of fixing the school district, that's a huge, enormous challenge that I know a lot of good people are working on, but it's just a huge challenge. But on the ground level, classroom to classroom, school to school, we have teachers. And to me, the teachers are the things that, the people that fill the cracks. And my question is, can you either commit to reimbursing teachers in a way other than like $100 or $200, a year? If not, what is the opposition to creating this fund? You said potential duplication. To my knowledge, there's no duplication yet. The fund for the school district has not created a reimbursement process. So it may create a reimbursement process, but it's just one of a zillion things the fund is doing. And then there's the school district itself. And we're not getting into, it has nothing to do with the contract negotiation or anything. As I've said before, I've had communications with some entities that are interested in funding, but we can't go further if we don't have a fund.
So, on behalf of the fund, I am a member of the board, but I cannot speak on behalf of the entire organization. I think the executive director, if possible, if you would like us to engage you in your office and talk about how we can set up that. I know from speaking with the executive director of the fund that she is willing to explore this opportunity for teachers in the city of Philadelphia. And that's why I feel comfortable in evoking the role that the fund could play and the willingness that it has to design such a system to set up a reimbursement or some type of resources for teachers. I can say that on behalf of the mayor's office, the mayor has set up, he's been very public about the luxury boxes in the stadiums that he has set up, so that way the funds go to the Fund for Philadelphia, for the School District of Philadelphia, to support schools and teachers in those efforts. And so how do we ensure that information is out to teachers and they know how to access those resources? And or how do we make sure that those that would like to donate, contribute, and philanthropic dollars towards the fund, so that way that those monies can be earmarked for teachers in those supplies or special projects. We can meet and figure out what would be a reasonable amount. I can put my current lens on it, but also my principal lens and teacher, in terms of when you talk of like really large amounts of money. When you say like $5,000, that's generally for some type of special project. And so how do you, create opportunities for teachers to ask for resources and supplies around special projects versus the smaller dollar amounts which help for day-to-day operations? But what still cannot be lost, and I can tell you from doing the budget process for schools for many years, is that when we are inadequately funded, it makes those choices very challenging, not just for the teachers, but at the principal level, when they have to make decisions around how much money is left in operating to buy those supplies. And it does vary from school to school when you think about some schools that have different resources or external resources or friends of groups that can help close those gaps and other schools don't. So we're not in disagreement in terms of the need to or why it's important to make sure that our teachers have the resources that they need to, in some cases, just provide basic supplies for students. It is a reality, and it's a reality that we've existed and dealt with for a long time. But the inadequacies in the state funding, and when those budget cuts hit, and I was a sitting principal at the time when the last round of when $1 billion was cut, and we saw, paper was a premium, resources, pencils for testing, all of those things became, batteries for calculators for testing, all of those things became an extreme premium, let alone the resources that you would need just to run your classroom on a daily basis. So there's no disagreement in terms of the need, but it's just making sure if we have an organization that is ready, willing, and already staffed and has the resources and the means and the know-how to do this, to do it. That's why, just advising on how we can better partner with the existing structure.
Yeah, let me say that I don't want to waste time. I'm not directing this towards you. I'm trying not to make it negative. What I'm saying is if we're just going to BS around this, let's just kill it today and move on to something else. I don't want to have a discussion about something. In other words, the reimbursement to teachers predates the $1 billion cut. Before the $1 billion was cut, there were teachers spending their own money. It's been an ongoing issue, and it's not like it happened 5 years ago or 10. It's just been an ongoing thing. It's just been exacerbated by the current situation, and the school district is looking at a $700 million deficit and a whole bunch of other issues. For me, the creation of a separate fund means the only thing that fund is for is to reimburse teachers. That money does not go anywhere else, can't go for something else, something more important. That's the only thing it does. And to my knowledge, there's $85,000 from the former effort by Mayor Nutter that is discontinued by the United Way. So there's $85,000 they're going to give to the school district. There's $200,000 that was appropriated for specifically reimbursing school supplies under Mayor Nutter's program, and there's been, at least on paper, another $200,000. So there's theoretically up to $485,000 available simply to reimburse teachers. I don't know where that money's going. I'm not saying that money should go into this fund. All I'm saying is there has been money identified, but at the end of the day, it's woefully inadequate, and there has to be, at least in my opinion, if we're going to be serious about this, a commitment to reimbursing teachers. And one of the things that I'm concerned about is, people fund different things. Quite frankly, when someone says to me, should I give a contribution to the SRC, my answer is no. Not $5,000, that's not going to make any difference, but if you'll go to a school, or I'll go to a school, and we'll see what they need, and we'll purchase the materials, that'll make a difference with your $5,000. Some corporations, foundations, they will not fund the SRC, but they will fund the reimbursement to the individuals, the teachers that are spending the money. And so, to me, it's a addition of funding, not a reduction or a competition for funding. And, the issue is that we've had this, I guess, reimbursement of teachers has been a topic that predates me, but at least this bill has been there. And to me, if there was a serious interest in creating a teacher's reimbursement fund within this fund for the school district, there would be a proposal, and there isn't. There's a discussion, then it's got to be voted on, and then, it's not going to be dedicated, and then how much are we talking about? What's the mechanism? I would just say, here's the best I can do. I'm just a legislator. The mayor is another elected official. He can propose something, and, the SRC could propose something, and everybody could propose something. This is just what I've proposed, and I've not seen a counter-proposal similar, a dedicated funding thing. We know how much money is in, basically vetted by former Philadelphia school teachers who know what the difference is, and an effort to get money into it so that we will, and they will, and everybody will know that the money in there is for reimbursing teachers and addressing inequity in our school system.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much. We would like to call Leslie Marie Grace, Barbara Bennett, Vivian Hansbury, and Barbara Severino. Thank you. Please begin in any order. Introduce yourself to the record, if you will.
Hi, I'm Leslie Grace. I'm an art teacher at Nebinger Elementary. And I would like to begin by thanking Chairman Blackwell, Councilman O, and the members of the Committee on Finance for this opportunity to offer testimony today in support of Bill number 161061. I feel like I'm really fired up. Sorry from waiting for so long. I would like to emphasize some of the points I made when I previously spoke in support of this bill. Currently, the only form of reimbursement for teachers is a $100 allotment offered yearly. For further clarification, under the existing agreement within our old contract between the school district and PFT, teachers can be reimbursed for only $100 of classroom supplies. And I say that twice to make sure that there is understanding how little teachers are given for out-of-pocket expenses. Furthermore, though there are programs like the Fund for the School District of Philadelphia, that does not directly support all classroom teachers in all subject areas, especially areas where we serve all children, like specials. Their stated major priority of establishing libraries in all K-3 classrooms, though significant and obviously important, does not help support all teachers in the district and does not help support all of the classroom needs. This bill would not create a duplication of service, and if there are multiple vehicles for funding, then I say all the better. $100 and that's it. And if anyone in front of a classroom or who has a child knows well, that $100 does not go far. Furthermore, the Philadelphia Education Supplies Fund, through United Way, established by Mayor Nutter, I'm going all backwards here, Mayor Michael Nutter, in which the school district applied on behalf of all schools, is no longer in effect. Even if it was not something that all teachers had equitable access to. Regardless, this bill is just to establish a transparent nonprofit to help support our city's hardworking teachers who spend their own hard-earned dollars on their students. Why is it accepted and expected as the norm for teachers to pay out of their wages? Teachers are professionals and we should be treated as such. If we spend our own money on our students, we should be reimbursed. I fail to see why this bill would not be supported, as it would be a nonprofit and it would only do good to help raise the equity of education in our district. I have personally paid for over $12,000 of supplies, furniture, and technology for my classroom over the past 4 years. In addition, wanting to ensure that my students have an equitable education to that of their counterparts in more affluent areas or districts, I've had to hustle and grovel for funding, as well as paying out of my own pocket. I've spent countless hours fundraising for my room, begging family members, friends, and the greater community. And in total, I've raised over $20,000 in the past 4 years. Though I am grateful for my $100 allotment, that amount clearly cannot support a classroom. Please do not pause for cause. Please do not take a step back. This is a fund that is urgently needed to support all teachers, all classrooms, and would have a direct positive effect on all students at no loss to the city and no loss to the school district. If we want to ensure the equitable education of our city students, then this bill needs support. We're losing great teachers in our city to more affluent school districts where they're provided with budgets, fundamental supplies, and are valued in their role as a professional educator. I would also like to submit into the records a petition with 231 signatures, and growing, I might add, in support of Bill 161061. Please show your support of our city's teachers and schools. Please vote to move this bill out of committee with a favorable recommendation. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
My name is Vivian Hansbury, and I am a retired teacher of 25 years. I am also the president of the Philadelphia Public Schools Employees Retirees Association and the regional director
of the Pennsylvania State Association of Retirees. When my organizations heard about Councilman O's bill, I was amazed. I said to myself, so the clock has reversed to over 25 years, and yet teachers are still required to use our personal funds to provide the necessary materials that children need in our classroom, especially children with special needs. So my organizations are here to support Bill 16106. I think the mere fact that teachers are willing to still use personal funds for basic classroom supplies is a testament to their dedication to the students, but also an indictment of a system that puts them in a position that requires them to use personal funds for basic supplies. The need for the replenishment of basic supplies increases as the school year needs. We talk about the progress of students, but yet we are unwilling to provide those necessary materials that are needed to ensure that our children progress. So the two people who preceded me said most of what I was going to say, so I will shorten my testimony to just say to the City Council, this is a need. You sat in somebody's classroom. You achieve because we teachers taught you the skills that you need to achieve. How dare you say you cannot find the funds and provide the funds for children to achieve? This is an excellent bill, and we encourage you to pass the bill. My two organizations are willing to do anything that you deem necessary to ensure that this bill passes. I thank you so much for your time, and we are looking forward that one day we will see on the internet that this bill has passed. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I will be very brief in my presentation and my request for the support of Bill 161061. And I'd like to say good afternoon to Chairperson Council Lady Blackwell and to the honorable council members who are present. And as a past employee of the Philadelphia Public School System, I fully support this bill.
Could you give us your name for the record, please?
Barbara Barnett, sorry.
Thank you. Is it Barnett? It's not Bennett?
No, Barnett.
Barnett.
Yes.
Thank you.
For more than 42 years, I was employed as a school district teacher. I have had several different employments in the district, but mainly my main focus was in the classroom. And as a classroom teacher, it was my pleasure to share with the students in a number of different schools my certification was for K through 12, but I worked in the junior high school mainly, and in the high school, the High School for Creative and Performing Arts. I am now the proud grandmother of two graduates, and I have one grandchild who is a current student at the Science Leadership Academy. And I have one of the students who graduated has been the recipient of a lot of help from his school and his school principal as well as his teachers. They have sought funds and they have provided funds for his education. Fortunately, we have had to supplement some of that
because they did a number of very special things. They had an exchange program that had to be funded, and of course, that was provided. Some of the teachers provided funds for that. I also, as a grandmother, helped to provide that. The generous proceeds from the teacher's pocket was greatly appreciated, and it was beneficial to not only my grandchildren, but to the other students in that classroom. During my school district tenure, I too supplied monies for students who were in need of various things, for trips to the theater, to projects that they provided, individual projects and travel that they had to do for some of their performances. There must be a direct interest in providing funds for the budget for providing teachers with reimbursement. It is important that you look at your conscience and say, I too will support Bill 161061 for the benefit of the students of the school district. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much. We note that United Way Barbara Savarino has submitted testimony. The stenographer should have it, and all of us in our packets. That was to be written only, so we will submit it as is requested. Any questions or comments? Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you for hearing us.
We'll ask the clerk to read the title of resolution number 170446 and ask Rob DeBoe to come forward.
170446, resolution authorizing the Committee on Finance to hold hearings to examine the city's annual reports requirement as it relates to every city office, department, board, and commission that issues any permit, licenses, or any document for which a fee is charged, in order to ascertain and discuss with the administration the current availability of these reports, and going forward a schedule which sets out when these reports can be made available to council for this fiscal year and every fiscal year thereafter.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your patience.
Good afternoon, Chairman Blackwell and members of the committee. My name is Rob Dubo. I'm the city's finance director. I'm joined by Anna Adams, the budget director, and we're here to testify in support of resolution 170446, which examines the city's fee structure for various services. Our understanding is the intent of the resolution is to ensure that the city has in place policies and procedures to ensure that it is charging the appropriate level of fees for services provided by city government. This would mean undertaking periodic analyses to determine whether the fees the city charges cover the cost of the services being provided. To the extent that those analyses resulted in appropriately higher fees, they could either lessen the pressure to increase taxes, provide funding to improve the health of the pension fund or the city's general fund, or fund additional services. We support the intent of the resolution and look forward to working with council to ensure that fees are at appropriate levels. With that, I'll conclude my testimony, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from Mr. DeBoe? Councilman Don?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You know, the goal of this is to, as we've talked about, is to figure out if we're charging the right fees for the services we provide as a city and making sure that we've included all the costs of those fees from every department of the city. And that's the big overreaching goal, because we've seen in testimony during council that some of the fees date back to the court system was 1984, some of those were 2006. So we just want to make sure that they reflect the current cost of the services we're providing today. So whatever you need in the way of support from us to accomplish that goal, 100% supportive of that.
Thank you. Appreciate it, and we think it's a worthy goal, and we'd like to work with you on it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your testimony today. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here who would like to testify on any of the bills or this resolution? Thank you much. Seeing none, then this will end our public hearing and we will enter into our public meeting. The chair will ask Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown to read a copy of a motion for bill number 170432.
Move that bill number 174432 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading at the next session of City Council.
Second.
It has moved and seconded that bill number 170432 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries, and bill number 170432 will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation and a request that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading at our next session of council. The chair recognizes Councilwoman Reynolds Brown for a motion with regard to bill number 170433.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that bill number 170433 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading of this bill at the next scheduled session.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 170433 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and furthermore, that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading at our next session of council. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries, and bill number 170433 will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation and a request that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading at our next session of council. The chair now recognizes Councilwoman Parker with a motion for bill number 170434.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that bill number 170434 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 170434 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries, and bill number 170434 will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation and a request that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading at our next session of council. The chair now recognizes Councilwoman Parker for a motion on bill number 170438.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that bill number 170438 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 170438 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading of this bill at our next session of council. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and bill number 170438 will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation and a request that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading at our next session of council. All right, the chair now recognizes Councilman Dom for a motion on bill number 170515.
Thank Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that Bill number 170515 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
It has been moved and properly seconded that Bill number 170515 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and motion carries, and Bill number 170515 will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation and a request that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading at our next session of council. The chair now recognizes Councilman Dowd for a motion on Bill number 170519.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that Bill number 170519 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
It has been moved and properly seconded that Bill number 170519 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries, and Bill number 170519 will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation and a request that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading at our next session of council. Chair now recognizes Councilman O for a motion on 170555.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Thank you very much, Councilman Blackwell. At this time, I would make a motion I would offer an amendment to Bill number 161061. It is.
No, we were on one.
Am I on the wrong script here? I'm sorry. Oh, gotcha.
You're moving a little faster than we.
I'm sorry. I go all the way back. Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that Bill number 170555 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Do we have a second? Second. It has been moved and properly seconded that Bill number 170555 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. And Bill number 170555 will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and furthermore, that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading at our next session of council. The chair now recognizes Councilman O for a motion on the amendment to Bill number 161061.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I offer an amendment to Bill number 161061. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee. I move for the adoption of the amendment.
Second. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to Bill number 160061 be approved. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed will say nay. And the motion carries, and Bill number 161061 has been amended. I think that does it for us.
I have additional motion, I believe.
Thank you. The chair again recognizes Councilman O for a motion on Bill number 161061 as amended.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I move that Bill number 161061 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
It was moved, but it was not seconded.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded that Bill number 161061 is amended, be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules with a favorable recommendation. Did you move for suspension?
I did.
Okay. And further,
Well, I don't think I did because I don't need a suspension. Yes.
all right. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Nay. The nays have it, and the motion fails. And Bill number 161061 as amended will not be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation. And let me further say that for all these votes, Councilman Greenlee left his vote for nay on this bill and aye on all the other bills. I think that concludes our business for today.
And this should be held, I guess, at the call of the chair, the resolution. Should we hold it?
Why?
Do you not need to say it's held?
It's a resolution.
I don't know.
He didn't ask for it to be held. We also had a resolution, but of course, a resolution does not have to be voted on. Am I correct?
Yes. Yes, it doesn't need to be.
So we thank you all very much, and that will conclude the business of our finance hearing. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you.